All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. Hello, everybody. Life is good. If you're in this chat, you probably agree right now. Season is over. Regular season is done. It is a wrap. And for the first time in a couple years, we can say the Seahawks do not play this week, but that is actually a good thing this time, because the Seattle Seahawks are enjoying that first round bye courtesy of the number one seed. Only the fourth time in franchise history this team has gotten the number one seed. And I'll tell you, the first three times it went pretty darn well for them. But we still got some stuff to talk about this week. I am Brendan. That is Brandon. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Nothing better than a bye week. As you said, we've only gotten to experience this a select few times in my life, and sometimes having to go decades in between. You better believe I'm going to be enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a special time. It's not a year where I foresaw a first round bye happening. I would even go so far as to say that this is the most shocked I have ever been by the team getting the top seed in the NFC. I think back to the other times that it has happened. I had a pretty good sense that year that those years were going to be good years. This one, first year with a new offense, first year with a new quarterback. I was ready for a wide range of possibilities. And I got to be honest, 14 wins was not really part of that range. So we are experiencing something very special here.
To your point, even beyond the buildup that we know existed before you got to the point of the Super Bowl with Coach Carroll, where he had been here for a few years, and yes, Russell was in year two, but you had really built the roster up and around before you added kind of Russ as that final piece. Even back to the Holmgren days, where you were in that flirtation mode with becoming that type of team for about 3 or 4 years prior to '05 and the culmination of that. And it's always seemingly kind of a build-up experience to kind of get there, rather than you just have the lights turn on and everybody just kind of arrives. So it is, I agree, a bit of a, snap your neck kind of speed here that this has occurred with, but makes it all that much more a remarkable season too.
That's right. So today I titled the stream Chilling on Wildcard Weekend, because we are indeed chilling, but there's still stuff to get into. And I want to start with that game we played 5 days ago, Saturday night, against the San Francisco 49ers. It was a game with tremendous stakes. And the Seahawks, they showed up enough to win, that's for sure. And they won fairly decisively. Obviously, it wasn't a blowout. The game wasn't over at halftime or anything like that. But I was never really all that concerned about this team losing that game personally. Like, I know that the score was close for a decent chunk of it, but once I saw how locked in the defense was, combined with how much we could run on that Niners defense, I felt like one way or the other, we were going to find a way to win that game.
Well, I think I would, of course, agree with you 100% on this. And I think that this is one thing that has taken not only some of the local fan base on the back half of the schedule, but the national view of this team. And it's made it very hard for them to understand this. And I think that this was not only the culmination and the building up to this type of game, Brendan, but I think you would agree as well to your point on what you're saying here, that this is the blueprint on the back half of this schedule. And that means it's purposeful. That means it's not happening because Sam's playing scared, let's say, or the offense is unwilling to take shots anymore, and go down the litany of items that we're hearing as to the reason why the offense isn't as explosive as it was in the first half of the season. But to me, this is about how this team has evolved to what they wanted to be before you got to that first half of the season when Sam was cooking it up and playing like an MVP, where you were in training camp, the type of team you wanted to run, And there's a reason you chose to be that. Not that you fell into that style of play. You wanted to be that type of play because right now in this sport, where defenses are at, where offenses are at, this can be as much an effective offense as anything in the game overall when you combine all the factors at play there. And it can take you and help you win a Super Bowl, as it has for many teams for many decades, many times over. And so I think I'd love to hear your confirmation of this, but I think you're in that same place where you're seeing this thing go, look, purposeful, number one. Number two, it's timeless. It wins in any era. And number three, it's all, you can feel everything coming together. It isn't three disparate parts of a team. It's three parts of a team that feel connected in how they play. And that to me is one where this is how you establish this type of brand of bull, this time of season to go and get that chip. Doesn't guarantee it, but this is definitely a model that's worked before.
That's right. That's right. I think that there is a reason why the team has transformed the way they have. I think it was Hawk Blogger. He posted a really interesting statistic last week, it was actually this week, where he looked at the team's EPA on plays where they had 11 personnel on the field and how much better it got since Shaheed got here. And mostly the positive impact has been with the run game. And this goes back to something that I said back when we got Shaheed, and I think applies even more now. This Seahawks team they didn't get Rashid Shaheed so he could score 70-yard touchdowns or that he could catch 50-yard passes. They got him to open up the run game. And on that level, man, have we succeeded. Over the last 3 games, I think Seattle leads the entire NFL in rushing yards outside of Baltimore. I believe they are the most effective rushing team over the last 3 games, other than maybe Baltimore. And that comes back, I think, in large part to the fact that they have a burner on the outside that puts fear in the opposing team. It forces these teams back into cover 2, and that has allowed this team to play offense the way they want to. Not the way they were forced to play earlier in the year because of the way teams were playing them, but the way they want to. And it's also a style that I think is much more sustainable. And I also think that it is a much more playoff appropriate style. Like right now, when you're looking at the Seahawks team and you look at that Niners game as an example, it's really hard for them to lose a game right now because their defense and running game are working together so well. Like, in order for us to lose, Sam Darnold really just has to throw the game away like he kind of did in the first game against the Rams. So as long as that doesn't happen, we're in very, very good shape. So the best way for this team to go forward, even though it may not be as fun, is to try to limit the opportunities for that to happen. And you do that by running the ball and keeping things relatively simple offensively. So I'm good with it. I'm riding with it. And I think that it is the best thing for this team that they simplified and became, maybe you could say, a little more boring offensively.
Yeah, it's a brand of football that works. And I do think the deep stuff's going to open up eventually in the playoffs here and there, because teams are going to start getting risky, to your point, on the cover 2 shell and the lack of guys getting down in the box. And you even felt the Niners in this last game, as the game wore on, starting to drive some guys in the box. And I had one 22 shot of all 22 in particular, Brendan, where Shaheed's on the outside and they're running the I personnel, I formation looks that they're running this game so often. And it's where JSN comes over on a crosser and Shaheed kind of runs it off, but you watch the play again and Shaheed's in one-on-one coverage with the outside corner and press, and he smokes him right up. And if Sam looks to him as the first read there, as opposed to going to JSN, he's got that over the top for a very easy throw on a 9 route. It's not even like, even if he's leaving, but he was a yard ahead when Sam would have potentially been looking over there. Sam got, of course, just locked on, and he completed the ball to JSN, so it was fine. But I think it will be there, that big play will come back to factor in the playoffs. We just don't have to throw it 8 times over the course of 3 games. It can be ones that you take a shot or 2 here through the course of the game and then trust in your offense's ability to manufacture those drives, control the clock, how that protects your defense, it keeps your defense fresh. What we'll have to deal with element-wise, I love, Brendan, that we're dealing with guys going out and practicing in the rain, and I kind of think about like how maybe that's going to be a big, not big, but look, if it is a wet game, we've been out there playing and practicing in it. You take a Rams team, if they come in our house, that's not what they play in. They're not used to that. And they've even had a game this year where rain screwed them up. May again this weekend. They got to go to Carolina with the rain in Carolina again this weekend on the forecast. So, you build up all these little advantages. We run the ball, we play great defense, play great special teams. Our quarterback can play efficiently within himself without not having to turn the ball over. You got the home field advantage. You got the Then you get a little bit of the weather. And I mean, these are the factors that all start to come into play to really creating a much bigger by large sort of advantage, is the greater of all the little parts that make it a bit. And that's what I think they built this to. It's purposeful. It works. And you're right about the turnover. From Sam's perspective, it's not fun to say this necessarily, but it's more of a speaking back to the defense. And if we may for a second, like, the driving force of this team, to say it's just the defense because that's the strength of the team is not enough to say that. It's to say this defense is very much close to being right on that precipice of a historic-like defense of the former Legion of Boom era. That Legion of Boom era they gave up 14.4 points a game in 2013 in what was still a little bit more of a diminished offensive era versus where we are now. We're giving up 16.2. And then you take that in tandem with being number one in DVOA, like that Seahawks defense was. In fact, our defensive DVOA this season, if I'm not mistaken, Brendan, is higher. That defensive DVOA is higher this year than it was in 2013.
You are correct.
Higher.
It is.
And so you can take pressure rates, turnovers, you can go throw all that into the barrel as you want to try to judge this defense. And it is right on that line of being historic. And it hasn't taken historic defenses in NFL history to go help get you a Super Bowl. It's like it helped, but to have it, there's been a lot of them that have won Super Bowls that have had it. And this thing is, to my eyes, I look at the bottom line on this, Brendan, on the brass tacks. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This seems to me like right at that spot. I'm not trying to put them in the same place of where LOB was at, but I mean, there's a lot here that's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I think that it's closer than a lot of people would immediately assume. Like, look how much better we are on the interior of the defensive line. That 2013 team, who did they have on the interior defensive line? It was Brandon Mebane, it was Tony McDaniel, it was Clinton McDonald. All three of those guys, I mean, Mebane was good, but those other two guys are journeymen. They're just guys. And they weren't really guys that got pressure. None of them really were pressure guys. So that's one of the most important things in football, the ability to get pressure from the interior. And this team is way better than that team there. And they might be better at edge as well. I don't know. That's an interesting debate that you could go back and forth on. The main advantage that the 2013 team had was turnovers. They forced more turnovers. But other than that, I think that it's very, very competitive. And I even did a whole video series talking about the comparisons. It's probably more competitive than you thought. So yeah. I think that there's a real debate there. And generally speaking, defenses this good make it pretty darn deep into the playoffs. Generally speaking, it's hard to be this good defensively and not go on a run. You could even say win the Super Bowl. You have to have a Rex Grossman at quarterback to not win the Super Bowl.
It's true. And I think that's as well, just to tandem that, a defense that's not only performed this well, but you could make a very strong argument that they're playing their best football and they're at their healthiest right now too. So there's the other part where, okay, those other teams that may have faltered in the past that had that good of a defense, were they good in the playoffs fully healthy? Yeah, they lost a couple of guys, maybe prime guys at that. We're not in that place.
Right. So as for the offense, a lot of people, I think, got hung up on 13 points scored in that Niners game. But to me, the offense actually played really well in that game. You had no turnovers. You only had one punt. And when you do that, when this Seahawks team does those two things, no turnovers and one punt, they're almost always going to score at least 24 points. The fact that we only scored 13 in that game was kind of a fluke. And it was just kind of random variance that caused it. I don't feel like it was an indictment on how we played so much, because we completely controlled that game on the ground. 180 yards rushing, really efficient passing. Like, it was one of those things where the points just didn't come. But if you played that way in that game 100 times, I think like 92, 93 times you'd score over 24 points. So to me, that was just kind of like, I'm not going to get lost in the fact that we only scored 13 points, because I think the offense actually played a great game. It just didn't quite result in points on the board.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's sometimes in this, you can find something that stands out that really just sort of represents the point you just made. And then you touched on it a little bit. You punted once and you didn't have any turnovers. Like, I put that math together in my mind and I'm like, it's a pretty good offensive day at that point. It's no turnovers, one punt. Like, that's a day where either my defense is just absolutely living on the football field and the offense gets no opportunities, or we've probably been pretty effective, regardless of me looking at where the score's at. And I think you're right about the whole thing. You play this out 99 times and you're going to have a score that tabs you in the 20s. It was just some freakish stuff that went on in this one that kind of allowed it to get a little bit skewed. But I thought the offense was what we needed. That's a Super Bowl winning offense right there. 200 yards passing, and people make a lot of stuff about this, Brendan. Interesting to hear your thoughts on this, about this, that Seahawks were somehow protecting Sam with the game call, or have been protecting him on the back half of the schedule. But we come back to, I think this is the ideal. And that though you have a guy in Stafford that's thrown for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns this year, the model the Rams want to live by is the same model we just performed at this last week if they could. They just sometimes don't have the effective running game they can fall back on. They haven't had the defense that's held up as well throughout the course of the season, not allowing them to then have to forcing them, I should say, to have to throw the ball a lot, and then turn Stafford into much more of a pass-happy kind of player at times in some of these games to get the wins. But if they had their druthers about it, they'd live in 13 personnel, and they'd probably get Stafford at 27, 28 passing attempts to begin the game, and he'd be fairly effective around that, but they'd be able to control the clock, run the ball. Do you not feel like that's the same way for a lot of these playoff teams?
I feel like kind of every team wants that. No, I don't think anybody wants their quarterback to throw the ball 50 times in a game. It happens sometimes. And
or even 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even 40, I'd say.
Yeah. You might not even want 30. Like, what does that imply? It implies you were behind for most of the game. It implies that your defense couldn't get stops. Like, think about the implication there. Nobody wants that. And it was kind of a weird year for the offense, I will grant that. But I think the thing that people lose track of is how good this offense was in 2020, in 2025. They broke a scoring record. They broke a franchise scoring record for points. And this is a team that has had some pretty great offenses in the past. Some of the Russell Wilson offenses, some of the Mike Holmgren offenses with Sean Alexander. It's not like we broke a tight end record and we're celebrating it, but realistically, we all know that Seattle's never really had a very good tight end. No, this was a meaningful record. This Seahawks team has led the league in scoring before. This Seahawks team has done some great things with their offense over the last 25 years. So to break that record, that means you're doing something very right. And there have been games where the Seahawks have scored 30 points or more where I felt like they didn't play as well as they played on Saturday, where they scored 13. So sometimes you have the right process and the results don't necessarily bear it out. But I'm not going to worry about it because we still won the game. And I think our process was as good as it's been all season long in that Niners game.
They keep saying it to us, Brendan, which is process over results. That's what they keep hammering on. And is that not exactly what you're touching upon there? So I think this is the greatest position we could be in getting into a playoff situation as far as this team goes, from the home field advantage to the health situation, to how both sides of the ball are playing. Even the Colts game that you could pick out in the back half of the schedule offensively, you don't feel great about necessarily how they played that game because they really couldn't run the ball as much. I still, if I'm not mistaken, how many scoring drives did we carve out in that game? Another game where how often did you punt?
6.
We come back.
6.
Yeah. So it's like, it just comes back to, this has been the model. This has not been something they've accidentally just kind of, well, I guess we got to play this way. It's some ways, like you said, to how the defense is adjusted off the heavy blitzes and into the cover 2 shell. It's some of that. It's some of now the running game coming forward, and you're getting the details down from these guys up front, and they're blocking it up better, and they're understanding where they've got to be, and the backs with it, I think, are learning the system as well as they've gotten better as the years gone on. It's all those parts working together here to make this thing go, but the offense is more than enough, to your point, more than enough for what they're bringing with this. And we don't need explosion. We don't need, it's great to have. It'd be awesome to throw a hang of 40 on the board in the playoffs. Then this team certainly has shown with their explosiveness, Brendan, with that fact that they can go on that Golden State Warriors, will just throw 20 in a minute and a half up on the board by launching 6 threes. They can do that, but not necessarily a necessity. We can win in a variety of different ways, which I love about this as well. We can get into a game where it's ugly, it's mucked up, the weather's coming into play, the winds, and we can play through that. We can be comfortable in that. Surf or ski, man. Surf or ski.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if this sounds familiar, this is how the team that won the Super Bowl last year won the Super Bowl, the Eagles. Like they didn't have the most advanced passing attack in the league. They didn't have some super elaborate throw the ball 50 times a game offense. They had a quarterback who, regardless of what's happened in the second half of the season this year, I think our quarterback is much better than. And I think that it's a similar formula. Obviously, we don't have a offensive player of the year like Saquon in our backfield, but we kind of get similar production out of the guys that we do have. We get a similar level of play, at least. And I think that we have seen the formula kind of swing this way in recent years. There was a time where you could have a team like the Kansas City Chiefs that had no back over 500 yards rushing for a season and basically have no running game to speak of when it actually mattered and still win the Super Bowl. I'm starting to wonder if those days are starting to kind of swing away and we're getting the more run the ball and play defense team swinging back like the Eagles.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's that the cover two shell and really the removal of as much the proliferation of spread concepts all over the place. I think you're getting back to more of a base offense, and more of a base offense makes this have to make you go back to running the ball, makes you more balanced. It just leads to you just dialing back the passes. You're doing a lot of play action, a lot under center, a lot of back to the defense stuff. It's not the same as a quarterback in shotgun staring at the defense 24/7 through the whole course of the play. And a lot of those bubble screens, I think, are getting weaved out. The fly sweeps that were in vogue about 5-6 years ago, you could run all over the place. That's been in a lot of ways extricated from the game, and you see very few of those being run anymore. It's kind of just like sprinkled in. It's been harder to run offense for where the defense's transition has come into play here, Brendan. And it's all about the defense becoming now ultimately much more complex than they were. And the offenses are now trying to find their adjustments to that, and it's still a process for them. Defenses, in my opinion, are kind of they taken back that rope in the great tug of war battle, like we say on this, and that they've pulled a little bit of that back, and the offense is still kind of trying to find that at 12 personnel, 13 personnel. Okay, how about 21 personnel with a fullback out there? Is this going to be a good answer for this? So they're searching for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as we head into the postseason, I know that the offense is something that people are hung up on, but I just wanted to talk about it a little bit to say that I personally am not that concerned. I think that the only way this team realistically loses in the playoffs is if Sam Darnold throws a game away. So I like the fact that we're running an offense that limits his ability to do that, because as much as I think Sam Darnold has been very good this year, I think that just naturally throwing the ball a lot invokes variance that you don't want to have. And this team has no need to have, because they have this running game now and this defense. So why would you open yourself up to it?
I can't put it better. I think the same thing. It's a risk that you're going to try to go score with these much more points, much faster, let's say, but it's not something that you have to do. If you don't have to do it, and you can just remove the risk down, then take the safer approach and stay in the pocket of who you are. And you were this way conceptually at the start of training camp, so it's all back to who you intended to be right from the start of things.
Yeah, and if you have to, you can do it, because you did it earlier this year, right? You had the most explosive passing attack in football for a while, so it's not like it can't be done.
Amen. You can if you need to start getting back in that mode in a particular game because the defense might falter for some weird random reason, or it's a couple fumbles pop up, you get behind. They've got the methodology to approach and go after this. You have a Shaheed in this lineup now that can give you some of that. We got to have a bunch of receivers out there that can be threats at that point, not just JSN. So you can get it done. I really believe that you can get it done. And I've got faith ultimately, not just this team, but the offense. And I think with Sam, he's done something since that Rams game where this is again back to stuff you make happen for stuff that just kind of happens. Sam, off the back of that Rams game, you and I talked about it, pointed to specific things within his game that needed to get corrected, that he could control, that weren't him somehow defunct mentally, that he couldn't overcome it because all these things that I would call Sam haters say at this point, because you are now a Sam hater at this point to me, if you're at this spot where you're still just trying to pick away at things. But it wasn't that. It was these things of controlling the turnovers late in the play. Don't get Superman take care of the ball, make that a little more point of an emphasis. Use your legs, hit the flat routes and the outlet passes to the backs out in the flat. All of these things have come forward, which have helped him to this play now. Helped him to go back and find some of this efficiency now to remove the turnovers off the books. So it just leads you to believe that it's more sustainable because it is purposeful.
Right. And I think that's really about all we can say about the team headed into the postseason. There's nothing to say about the defense. They're ridiculously good. I don't think anybody out there is worried about this defense in particular. They're going to be more or less 100% healthy by the time by the time we play again. Like maybe Kobe Bryant misses another game, but it seems like he's going to be back. And we're at the point now where a lot of people don't even know if he's part of our best lineup. Like there are people who think that maybe Ty Okada is better, and I don't, but it's not an indefensible take. Clearly, Okada's been good, so I'm open to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm at that spot either, but I mean, I could very well be very close to it. I mean, he certainly has been much higher graded than what Kobe Bryant has this year by PFF standard of things, and Kobe's got like 5 picks on the books. So,
Hmm.
you go, it speaks to the fact that they seem to feel like his play's pretty consistent on that. He looks great on tape, and I think the thing with Ty is he's just gotten better and better this year. The more he's played, it's just the more comfortable he gets in this defense, he just continues to rise. Whereas Kobe, I think we have probably gotten to the where he's at as far, and it's good, it's a good spot, it's a good player. But we also understand why probably this down the road and when we get to free agency and who we're going to let walk and who we're not going to let walk, it's this also makes a lot of sense. But you're right. Not only defenses on the front line healthy, Brendan, but you've got those backups. That's the thing that stuns me with this from a health standpoint is that you have a lot of teams that might have their starter going out there. Let's say he's being glued together because it's been a long season and he's beat up, but then he's got no backup, right? No viable guy. Well, if he goes in down in a playoff game, you got to go to that backup. Like you're in trouble. We got our 2 inside linebackers balling out, right? But our highest rated linebacker this year has been Tyrese Knight on 300 snaps. And now that's aided by those 2 strip sack fumbles. Make no mistake about that. But he still, they liked how he played around that. He played well around that. But you got to call upon him. Akata, if you got to call upon him. You got Woolen and Jobe out there. You still have Nehemiah Pritchett, who's been solid. If you got to call upon him. You got a defensive line with 4 deep off the edges. Jaron Reed coming in. Riley Mills intermixed in here now. Even a Peely, if you want to bring him in for a certain matchup where you think the running game is going to be heavier for a certain team versus another. I mean, you can just kind of roll whatever you want to roll here, and you've got the depth. It's wild to me, Brendan, to be at this time of year with how many teams we've seen broken down through the years. The last time we were in the playoffs 3 years ago, Jonathan Abrams at safety. You go. Wow! It is just. It's such a kind of just blessing to be in this position to have these guys in the spot like this going to the playoffs because it's unusual, highly unusual.
Yeah, and now we know Josh Jones can play a decent left tackle if we need him there too.
There you go. There, yeah, yeah. I mean, you got Olatimi at center. You got a Haynes who could maybe come in and be functional if he had to, especially considering Bradford's been for a lot this year. You got your receivers good to go outside of a Torrey Horton. Even Arroyo, man. Arroyo's back in the mix now today. I mean, like you just scratch your head and you're like, you got your 2 running backs. Kenneth Walker's healthy at the end of the season. I'm wanting to like rub my eyes and pinch myself a little bit here. Like this is like out of a dream a little bit.
Yeah, neither of our running backs went over 500 snaps this year. I think Walker was at 498 and Charbonnet was at 487. Yeah. It ended up working out really well.
You'd write it out on paper at the start of the year from their perspective. I know fans were pushing for one or the other, but the team wanted to go at it, I think, from that perspective right from the start of the year. And you're right. It was absolutely ideal for what you would have hoped you could bear out on that. And you still got Walker over 1,000 yards and you kept him efficient and still found value and then found Charbonnet with his touch. It's again back to like, you've got this just nice thing humming all the way through. This is an engine that's humming with all its interconnected parts. The pistons are hammering and you couldn't ask for it to be in a better place going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to talk about a couple of things that we've seen over the last several days since that 49ers game. Let's start with, since you just mentioned him, Elijah Arroyo. He's back now. He's missed the last month. And one thing that a few people have pointed out is that the Seahawks offense, particularly their dropback offense, was much better in games where Arroyo played than games where he didn't play. We were like 8th in the league in dropback EPA with him and 19th without him. Do you read much into that? Do you think Arroyo was actually bringing a significant value to the offense, even though his stats were pretty pedestrian? Or do you think that was just kind of a small sample size?
Small sample size, and it also happened to the same conjunction of the transition to the cover 2 that you talked about, right? So he's starting early on the year. You're getting stacked boxes, you're getting blitzes, you're getting single high looks from the safety position. Now cover 2, right about the time he goes out, every team's playing you to take away the deep stuff and limit down your passing attack. So I more point to that. And I don't know if I really quite understand the fit to bringing him on and activating him at this point, considering the difficulties this team had throughout the course of the season when he was healthy in utilizing him. Throw away utilizing him, having just a freaking plan for him game in and game out. And you have a lot of guys to throw to. There's only so many hands. I get all that. But like, what I like about this team right now is in Saubert and in Barner, I've got 2 grade A blockers when they're out there. And that's helped the running game. And now I've got Oots finally starting to have things come clearer, it seems like, for him. He's getting more comfortable now. The I formation looks in the last game. It feels like he's starting to understand what he needs to be doing as a fullback, which is understandable as a guy that was a tight end really at Alabama. And so you go, okay, well, I'm going to probably deactivate one of those guys if I'm activating Arroyo. And then, like, am I going to, is my 12 personnel now Arroyo out there with Barner instead? And Arroyo's to me not the blocker Saubert is. And does that, do I want to go backwards in the run game? And, if I thought that they had more of a certain plan for him, and I can see where they're maybe thinking like the Rams with Landman and the other linebacker they have there, you can definitely get after those guys as far as walking through this. Let's just say it's like a Rams team, Brendan. They showed you the last game that they want to run a lot of the 3-4 looks. So they're out of that nickel package, meaning that they're going to now kind of commit to it being a linebacker or a strong safety. They're going to try to put on Arroyo, and maybe they're thinking they can better utilize that mismatch, but you didn't the first time. You did in the first Rams matchup. So I don't know why you'd suddenly feel like you're going to do it here rather than just, again, work with what's working, work with what's established now over the back half of the schedule here a little bit. I like Arroyo's potential still for the future. I'm not trying to throw him away, but just we don't have the time right now in the playoffs with 3 games to go for a rookie to kind of find his way in an offense. It kind of needed to happen at this point.
Yeah, and I also kind of think that just in general, teams are going to shy away from going to a rookie in the postseason, especially one that's missed the last month and didn't play that much before he got hurt anyway. I kind of feel the same way about Torrey Horton. That's why a lot of people are talking about what Torrey Horton could have done for this offense if he was still healthy. And I ask myself, are you really going to take away snaps from a veteran like Kupp and give them to a rookie like Horton in the postseason? Maybe we might want to, but I feel like, speaking, teams do not do that if they can avoid it. They want to give those snaps to the veteran. They trust that guy more than they trust the rookie. So I don't know how much Arroyo is going to play this postseason despite being back.
Oh, and again, back to your point on that, last game the Arroyo went out, right? And Mike McDonald threw shade right up on him on the press conference after the game where they asked about the Sam Darnold interception. And he's like, he's got to go make a play on that contested catch, and that was it stood out to me because he directly is pointing at Arroyo on that play for not making a better effort at going and getting that ball. So look, I don't think Arroyo's played bad necessarily, but I don't think you could. I think in the case of Horn, to your point too, I don't think it'll be Kupp coming off the field, it'll be Shaheed coming off the field because I don't think that he's going to go slide the slot. I think they don't have a guy I don't think they're going to put JSN into the slot. They're going to keep on the outside where he's been effective. So it becomes Shaheed for Horton if Horton's out there, not Kupp.
Yeah, and I think that you just would rather have Shaheed out there, maybe not in the red zone, I guess. But even the red zone thing, I was looking at it, like everyone's talking about how Horton's a great red zone receiver because he has 5 touchdowns this year, but I think only 2 of those came in the red zone. Like he's made some big play touchdowns this year, so I even feel like that's a little overstated. And at the end of the day, Shaheed just brings stuff that Horton cannot and will not be able to do. So I'm riding with that as much as I can.
I am too. And you're right about back to sample size, taking just too many things and extrapolating them to the bigger point on Horton with that. I think he'll eventually be a good red zone guy. I don't think he's a red zone, monster right now. The fade ball he caught that was against the Saints, on the down the red zone. And the thing with this too on the red zone is that we're running the ball really effectively down there. And that's really the key on success at red zone more than having a dynamic target you can go throw a ball up to, go get. Like, give me a running game that can run inside that 20 and especially inside the 10, inside the 5, like they've been doing, getting the consistent yards. They get in there and they're going to go down from the 8 recently, and you're getting 3 yards on that carry. You're getting 4 yards on that carry. And like, it's not only that you're moving it down in there, but you're getting really good positive yards on those runs that leads you into second down, now being able to put anything in the playbook you want to go to. And you can just, I think the way they're running the ball right now, you can just kind of hammer it. When we all think, for instance, on that 1 yard line, if we just ran 3 straight times in the start of the game, you're probably scoring a touchdown.
Right.
We're walking away with it. So it's like we have that confidence where because they've emboldened us to have that kind of confidence in this run game right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the other thing that happened over the last several days was, and this was a little bit of a surprise. I did not expect an announcement like this in the middle of the season, but during the Sunday games where we were watching to see who was going to make the playoffs and who was going to be positioned where, the Seahawks announced a 4-year, $104.4 million extension for Charles Cross, their left tackle, who has missed the last 3 games. How did you feel about that?
Great. I've been wanting this offensive line to be built into a strength for years. I don't think that you don't keep continuing down that path, trying to go and search for a left tackle when you're picking in the late 20s in the first round. I think that in Cross, he's a guy that people get caught up in what he's not. He's not a top six. He's a really good left tackle. He's still 25 years old, still probably not a fully finished product. First year in this new system. He's gone through a couple of different systems up until this point that have at times been wildly different from one to the next. Had two different injuries this year, if I'm not mistaken. He had the finger injury in training camp that kept him out and kind of messed up stuff, and then they had the hamstring injury here. So, it's a little dinged up here, maybe not getting the grade A perfect performance or the performance maybe we got from him last year. Where he played like a top six, top seven tackle in this sport, not left or right tackle, just a top tackle in this sport last year. That's where he was at, and I think that. He seems to be a great leader in the locker room and a great guy in the locker room. It's by all accounts, what you're hearing off the back of this. The cost is not exorbitant to me. People are getting caught up in a little bit of the price here. And to me, not looking at, they're looking at the guys up ahead of him, right? Like a Tristan Wirfs, and they're not looking at the guys that are just directly below him, up above that 20 million per year mark, right in there where you're like, that guy's getting paid that guy's getting paid that guy's getting paid that. And you start to go, okay, well, this makes sense. The numbers make sense. And then throw on the top point of this, as we've talked about many times with other organizations that do this, Brendan, when you have a first round pick that has outperformed his deal in his first 3 years, and you choose to do that, well, we've got the 5-year option. We've got the 5-year option. Okay, you can play that game. But then when you go through the fourth year, the cost now goes up. The discount, if there's a discount to be had, is going to go in the third year because you're buying the club control years out at that point. So the fourth year to this makes this locked into where it needed to be. And I think the price was right. I think you wanted him to play loose and free this playoffs. You don't want him thinking about the injury situation, considering he's had two of them this year, and the hamstring, is probably good, but it's, maybe not 100%. So I like the deal all the way around. And I think that I'm happy they're doing this. And one less thing that we have to then replace and go after. And I want this team locked and loaded as we go in the future. The window opens now. I don't want to be having to rejigger some of the most important positions on this team because we're just not quite sure if he's a top 7. He's a top 12, but is he a top 6? Like, I don't want to get into that. You know what I mean? Like, just sign it and go.
Yeah, left tackle is becoming like quarterback. When it's your turn to get paid, it's your turn to get paid. And it doesn't really matter exactly how good you are. We don't play that game here. When it's your turn, it's your turn. So yeah. I did see a lot of Seahawks fans who were kind of upset about the extension. Maybe not upset, but they were disappointed in the extension. And I think that, like, I don't know what world these people live in. I had some people say that he's a below average left tackle. I was like, what league are you watching where Charles Cross is a below average left tackle? There's no universe where he's even close to being that. Maybe he's not as good as Tristan Wirfs, or what's the name of the guy in Philly? Maitaya?
Yeah, Malata.
Yeah, I'm not very good with
I can't say it either. I butcher it half the time I say it. It's Metalda, it's Metalia. I think if I'd using that toy, I think I called him the toy company. What was the toy company? The Mattel. I probably called him that at some point or another. It's been pretty bad.
Right. So I think that at the end of the day, either this is the price you pay to get a player like a Charles Cross, or you don't get him and you have to make do with worse players. Like, at the end of the day, like, you can be upset about it all you want to, but you have two choices. Either you pay this price or you don't get the player. So I'd much rather have the stability on the offensive line. I'd much rather have the three most important positions on the offensive line locked up for the next 3 years than have to hope that I can find somebody better than Cross. And I'm not even that. Like, you're not going to find somebody better than Charles Cross this offseason. Not with the draft picks you have, not with free agency. Like, it's not going to happen. That kind of stuff doesn't ever happen. So I'm happy that we got it out of the way. If you include the 5th year option money, it ends up being like 24.4 million per year, which is totally fine by me. And a year from now, somebody is going to sign another contract that is going to make this Cross deal look amazing, because that's how this works. It's the same thing happened with Damian Lewis, right? It took 1 year for Damian Lewis's contract to go from disaster to bargain. So I'm not worried about it at all. I just want to keep some of the key guys in this core together. So I think it's great. I'm happy also that I don't think waiting the extra 6 months to extend him seems to have hurt us, because I think we would have given him similar money back in May if we had extended him then.
Yeah, I think this was the whole thing with the Lucas thing we talked about, right? Like Lucas, you could get the discount. He performs the season like he's performed. Now you'd be paying double the price. But because of the 3 years of performance and it may not make sense, but that first round pedigree kind of matters on this too. When you have the performance paired with the pedigree, and then it's just like, well, you're not getting the discount. Charles Cross's people were probably like, here's the cost where it currently lies. And his season he's performed, here's the cost where it currently lies. And you go, okay, well, you wait that year. It is what it is. And the price is at where it's at. So I think it just makes a lot of sense. Your points are, I think, also really good ones on top of that, just to where there's a lot added into this for why it's good. On top of the final price, the 5th-year option's got to be factored into here. Like you said, let's see the structure of the deal too and how the numbers really bear out. Ken's still 25 years old. This kid came in as a pup at 21. So this isn't a 28-year-old guy that's on the edge of injuries about to add up after a 9-year career, but a guy that's like 25. In the next 4 years, we should have the prime of his career, the best of his play. He is a guy that you can trust out on the blind side, whether he's dominant on that or not. I can trust him out there with your team's best rusher, and he's going to be able to give as good as he takes on a day like that. You're not going to see him getting exploited, and I can count on that from an offensive play caller standpoint. Goes far now to help build us in this offensive line of strength. Imagine what happens now, Brendan, if you can find difference makers at the center guard position, or Sundell develops into a difference maker and you can go get a different maker at the right guard. Like now we've got a offensive line that's scary.
Yeah, and the Sundell thing is going to get really interesting because there seems to be tremendous synergy between him and Zabel, and he is starting to play some pretty good football. And I don't know what we do this offseason anymore. Like if you can get Linderbaum, of course you do that. But other than Linderbaum, there are not a lot of guys out there that you can get that are going to be better than Sundell will be in 2026. Because it's a terrible rookie class. And other than Linderbaum, there are not a lot of great free agents out there.
No, there's not. I agree with you. I think it's a position that you come down to again, and John's perspective on this, I think, could be highly driven to the point of I got a 14-3 team. I got a young roster. I'm got to reward a couple guys, but I'm still in that pocket point right now with a quarterback on the mid-tier deal where I really want to go and find the difference makers for the spots that I have to address. Or if I can find a difference maker for the spots I can address and minimize the amount of positions I have to address, that will aid me to getting there. Does that make sense? Like I want to get to a Crosby, and maybe I want to try to find a cornerback that's maybe better what we've had out there. You know, can I do a combo of a Crosby McDuffie type deal? You know what I mean? And that kind of give me some room here. You know, I mean, I'm not saying exactly that, but something along the lines of you're more scalpel like rather than hatchet like in the approach, because then to your point, you've got your center back up there. Bradford comes back. Maybe you can try to find somebody else in the mix there, but even that, you've got still Haynes back in him. You've got Cable to do that the team seems to like a little bit as the left guard guy that can be the backup there. I don't mind addressing the line, but I'm just saying if they're doing it to the other side of this and they're not addressing it, to do it by that scalpel method of really bringing on some extra difference makers onto the mix, I could understand that approach.
Right. I think that's probably correct here. So I think that's really all there is to say about Cross. I think it's definitely the right move to do. It was always going to happen unless he had a terrible year this year, which he did not. So there's not much to say other than that it was the right thing to do.
It was right. This is one where it will look good in retrospect. Give it a year if you don't like the contract numbers, Brendan. I'm anticipating, based on what I'm hearing, that the NFL seems to be about ready to have one of those years where I don't know if it'll be this offseason, but they're anticipating coming up soon, be it the gambling money or whatever it is, that it's going to increase the cap at one point or another. We'll get one of those 25 million, 30 million, increase off-season moments rather than the 10 to 13 bumps that we've had at times. And if that happens, this will make this deal make even more sense.
Yeah, wait till you see what Paris Johnson probably gets this offseason.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're right about that. There's going to be at least 3 or 4 deals signed between now and then that are going to make this look like a very nice bargain discount of a deal for the Hawks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. Real quick, we got some donos. I think these are from yesterday when you were doing a show.
Yeah,
but
these
Kyle
are
and Dick Hammer both became members over on your side. So congratulations.
Did you know about, you never told me that Sam Darnold's granddad was the Marlboro Man?
No, I didn't know that. I did not.
So his name was,
really?
his name was Dick Hammer.
Really? Okay. That's interesting.
I'm not kidding. It sounds like a joke, but I'm not kidding you. Like you can go, they got all these posters of him. He's got a cigarette hanging and his name was actually Dick Hammer.
That's pretty good.
That's good, man. I guess if you're going to be the Marlboro Man, that's probably going to be your name. It goes kind of 1-2, but thank you, Mr. Hammer and Kyle. Appreciate you guys for jumping aboard.
We got one dono here, 12 for life, go Hawks with the $5. I love the chef's kiss poetry of Coach Mike's dark side defense killing the light on opponents at Lumen, a unit of brightness. That's pretty
Let's
good. I
go.
didn't really think about that. I can dig it.
Yeah, I love it, man. Good stuff. 12 for life, and absolutely, they are a dark side defense. I love they were describing it yesterday a little bit of the darkness of the stadium, darkness of the environment, and up the Pacific Northwest. It does kind of fit.
Yeah, I can get into it. It's probably, it seems like they've picked it as their nickname, so we got to go with it. If they're gonna pick it, then I think you got to roll with it at that point. The players.
I agree. If they're on board with it, let's go. It's good
Mhm.
enough on that. So, and they've earned the right with this defense, like we talked about earlier in the show. As good as they've been, it's definitely earned the right to earn a nickname here.
Mhm. All right. So now I kind of want to turn the focus over to the to what's going to happen this weekend, because obviously Seattle doesn't play, and our opponent in the divisional round will be determined by what happens this weekend. So thinking about potential outcomes this weekend, the most likely opponent for Seattle is the Packers, because the only thing that has to happen for the Packers to be our opponent is that the Packers have to win. And right now they are favored by Vegas by, I think, like 2
Wow.
points over the Bears, which I
Wow.
don't know if that should be the case, but that is what they're currently going with. So therefore, if you go by that, there is a better than 50% chance we play the Packers in the divisional round. So how would you feel about playing Green Bay at this point in time?
Well, I think that I am one of those people that would say that I'd like to more prefer to play the Rams into the, if we're going to play them, if that has to come up. I'm not one of those like, get them out of the way now. I'm like, let them go to Philly. Let them go to Philly and figure out what they got to do out there if that's the way that goes. So first off, I think from that perspective, I like the matchup. I think that Jordan Love remains a conundrum, an enigma wrapped inside a, what do they say with that? Enigma wrapped inside of something.
A riddle.
A riddle, because he is a guy that is got so much talent and a guy that has played so much football now and had a chance to sit and is at that point of his career in his prime right now where, he should be lighting it up with the skill set he kind of has. Yet he still does seem to be a little restricted on the one read thing where he just can't go still through multiple reads. LaFleur's got to still kind of hold his hand through plays to get it. And then yet still he'll give you improvisational stuff too, where the hand isn't being held. And it's not about him going through reads there. It's just him being improvisational and chucking the ball down 55 yards off his back foot. But he's dangerous. He'd be the part that scares me, especially with this offense of the Packers that will be a lot better of health than where their defense is at. Now, the defense just can't generate any pass rush. So, this might be a game where if they come in here, Brendan, it turns into a quasi, little bit of a shootout. And especially they had a chance to rest up this last week to the Packers leading into this playoffs. So I would be a little freaked out by Love in the respect of he's a guy that can just be dangerous and get hot, and he's got all the talent in the world. Even if you play great defensively, you have a guy in a good position defensively, and he can make that throw in that tight spot, big time throw down the field. But I would still rather that as my chances moving in the next round than the alternative of the Rams. Certainly the 49ers would be the most ideal, and they're only 4.5-point favorites are the Eagles with the 49ers going in there. But how do you feel about it? I just feel like that's the only one place that has me a little scared. I think we stopped Jacobs. He's not been the same back this year. He looks a little worn down. That line's not blocking as well for him up front. But Love can get hot. He's got his receivers. Watson's out there now. Golden's out there as a backup, right? They got Reed in the mix there. So would be tough, I think, but I think we can handle him.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just that Green Bay defense without Parsons they don't offer much of anything that I'm worried about. They can't get at the quarterback. We've seen that their defensive line now without Parsons really doesn't get anything done. They, like, you look at that Ravens game where they didn't even have to worry about Lamar Jackson and they still gave up 300 yards rushing. It's just, you do the math on that and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can control the game on the ground because of that. And you're right about that whole Packers offense thing. I know the advanced numbers love Jordan Love. Seahawks Nerd was arguing that Jordan Love should be like a fringe MVP guy. But I look at Jordan Love and I'm just kind of like, I feel like a lot of quarterbacks could do this with LaFleur's offense because I am a LaFleur guy. I think that he's very good. So I don't know. That one's a little bit hard to figure out. Also worth noting that Green Bay is playing their worst football right now. They are on a 4-game losing streak right now. They were 9-3-1 at one point. They're now 9-7-1. So I know that they lost to Denver, which is an honorable loss. They lost kind of a ridiculous game to the Bears, and then they rested starters against Minnesota. But even if they find a way to beat the Bears this weekend, that's not a team that I look at and go, yeah, they're playing their best football right now. I look at a team that is kind of playing their worst football.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do have the Packers winning this, Brendan, but it's as much because of the history of watching rookie quarterbacks in their first playoff experience and how bumpy an affair that can be. Ben Johnson coaching his first playoff game. Stuff just kind of changes a little bit in the playoffs. And I can't even always give you a specific. Sure, it's the running game comes a little bit more to bear, shorter possessions, but things get tight. Things aren't just kind of loosey-goosey like they are in the regular season with the play calling and how you can operate. And I feel with Love, he's been here, and that this LaFleur team's been here, and that is the factor for me. On top of the fact this is two teams that play within the division, and that tends to bring a bit of a leveling of the field as it is, no matter what. And so wherever the teams may be, however they're playing, and I just come back to again with Love on it. I think he's a guy that's capable of giving you kind of those games, and you give him a full stack offense to work with that he can really utilize his playmakers and just gets hot. Anything can happen. It's going to be kind of a shootout a little bit, and then it just kind of to me comes down the line at the end of the game. And I think, even though I know Caleb's had a lot of comebacks this year, that Love game down the line at this point. See, I could just see him kind of driving out, sneaking out the win at the end.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of happy to be here energy from that Bears team because I think basically everybody on that team, this is their first playoff game.
Exactly.
Right? Like, who do they have on that team in the way of like a veteran that's been in playoff games before? They've got I don't even know. They might not really have anybody. Rome Odunze, obviously not him. I don't think DJ Moore ever played in playoff games in Carolina. Like there might really be. Oh yeah, Thuney. That's probably your one guy, right? That's probably the one guy on that team. Maybe Kevin Byard played in a couple playoff games in Tennessee. That's about it.
That would be about all, man. I can't think of anything else. Montez Sweat never did with Washington, and
CJ Gardner-Johnson maybe a little bit.
Yeah, you'd be a guy that can maybe provide them a little bit, but there's only so much I think guys can kind of tell their guys about the playoff experience when you're going in for sort of the first time. There is a little bit of that, like, whoa. And if you got the coach that's been there, that helps. And if you have the quarterback that's been in there, that helps. But it can be a bit of a different experience. The intensity just ratchets up. The sense of, you win or go home just kind of brings that feeling to it. And so I don't know. I think everything you say with Chicago is that they're set up, they should win this game. They're better health. They've got the offense cooking. The defense isn't good, but it's better than the shape of Green Bay. It can generate pressure. Booker off one edge, Sweat off the other alone, and they've got a decent interior defensive line. So they should, on paper, be able to get out in that way. This is one where of all the matchups in the first opening set, and I was surprised to see Buffalo finally got it to be the team that they're putting as a game and a point and a half to them as well, traveling to Jacksonville, because that was going to be my other upset. I had looked at these two before I saw the lines, and I was like, Green Bay and then Buffalo, and then I saw the lines actually were shifted in their direction. I was like, okay, well, Vegas is kind of seeing how I'm seeing on this one a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and also on the other side in Green Bay, you have some if we don't win this game, people are getting fired energy. Like LaFleur could be gone if they lose that game. I don't think he should be, but he could be. That is a team that kind of went all in this offseason on the Micah Parsons trade. If they go one and done as a 7 seed again for the second year in a row, I think they were the 7 seed last year. I could see some pretty crazy stuff happening this offseason. So there's going to be way more motivation on that Green Bay side because Ben Johnson's not getting fired no matter what happens.
No, I mean, and that desperation stuff can, light a fire. And you bring up a good point. If I'm not mistaken, too, LaFleur, I think his contract expires after this year. So he's also, they haven't put him on an extension yet. And so they don't even have to fire him at that point. I think they just let him walk.
Yeah, right. And you don't see that often. So that does indicate there's a lack of faith in him and a lack of belief in him. So it seems realistically possible. Let's see here. So if it's not the Green Bay Packers, you kind of have two teams that it could be with I would say there's about equal chances on the 49ers and the Rams. Because in order to play the 49ers, all that needs to happen is the Bears win and then the Niners win. And then in order to play the Rams, all that would need to happen is that the Bears win, the Eagles win, and then the Rams win. So I'd say both those teams are kind of like a distant second in terms of the odds that we play them. Niners are slightly more likely, so because there's less that needs to happen. So if we're starting with the 49ers, I think obviously we would feel pretty great about that because we all watched that game on Saturday.
Hmm.
But I I I do think there is something to be said about how the 49ers they might be a little bit more they might bring a little bit more to the table in a divisional round game than they were able to in that game last week. So how do you feel?
I mean, you could say they're going to bring a little more fight and put up a little more points, but I think that defensive effort you threw at them was as much, and I led up into the week saying this, so it's on retrospect. That was as much about you being able to hammer a team that, from an injury standpoint, is decimated. And they just lost another inside linebacker this last week, Tatum Bethune, to a torn groin. And you're already down Martin, the third round pick, and you're already down Fred Warner, and Dre Greenlaw moved on this offseason. And you got no Michael Williams, a top 12 pick this year that was really helping them as much as anything in how he's helped to stop the run off the edge. And no Bosa. And a secondary that's all right at best. All right at best. And offensively speaking, Kittle is not 100%. Trent Williams, okay, maybe comes back off the hamstring. How much and how close is he really to 100%? And what is he going to give you off there? Pearsall gives him a guy that they may not have, but he's got injuries as well that he's having to work through and fight through. Didn't seem like Juwan Jennings was 100%. McCaffrey has got 430 touches on that body this year. I think he's nowhere near, where he was at the start of the year, even from a fresh angle and being at his best. I think that would weigh out with you playing at home. I think that you end up still winning by double-digit points against that 49er team at home.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I think back to that week 1 game against the Niners where that game was kind of broken open a little bit by Ricky Pearsall beating Woolen deep on that one play right before the touchdown. And they didn't have Pearsall when we played them this last week. If they get him back, does that open up the big play part of their offense a little bit and at least allow them to threaten us? And maybe that frees them up just a little bit and make things a little more interesting?
No, because the first matchup was one where first off, Nick Emanwari went out after 3 plays. It changed a lot of the outlook of your defense and how you played it because Witherspoon had to kick inside. They had to peck away all day to the 49er offense, and they did a good job in that first matchup of moving the ball for the most part. But even in the peck it away and find some success in moving the ball, didn't score a lot of points, number one. And number two, for all that pecking away that they had to do because they couldn't run the ball, they had 2 interceptions on the books against us too. And what were they doing on both of those 2 throws, Brendan? Trying to push the ball down the football field. On one of those throws in particular, it was on a crossing route to Ricky Pearsall that Josh Jobe jumped. That's the exact route there. Woolen made a bad play on that ball. Pearsall didn't run a great route. And the evidence of this is, frankly, there was a play in the All-22 that I broke down yesterday on my roundup, Brendan, where the Niners tried to run the very same play on Woolen, the very same stop and go route, the exact same one, and he was all over it. And Purdy's sitting there staring, and he sees it, and Purdy ends up having to throw an incompletion on the play. So Woolen's grown in his game. That same play that happened that way wouldn't happen the same way. I think that he's had, whatever has happened, that the light bulbs come on, it's come on. But I just think with them, they don't have the means, even that first matchup, when you watch it and you look at those interceptions, you start forcing Purdy to push the ball down the football field, which you're going to do because you're going to take away the other stuff they want to do, as they did this last game, including, Brendan, press, man, coverage. Oh my God, the last couple of weeks, bro. The amount of press man on the books, the amount of press man on outside with both corners, not one with one guy in off coverage, 10 yards off, right, where you're playing that game, but I'm talking press coverage right in the guy's face, and we're playing man post snap. Niners don't want to live in that, man. They don't want to deal with that. They want zone coverage. They want off coverage. They want you in soft zone defense that they can cut you up underneath with, and you're not going to give them that. I just don't think they've got no pathways with this particular team, and as much as anything because of where the health standpoint is at, and as well as how dominant we've been playing.
Yeah, and also clearly this is a team you can run the ball against very well, not just because you did it, but because the Niners do not have a good run defense in general. The Bears ran on them, the Titans ran on them. So clearly that's a team that can't really stop the run at this point. And in that hypothetical game, they would be down to like their 4th string linebackers. Now, I will say this. There's no reason why they should be able to beat the Eagles with that in play. So if they find a way to beat the Eagles, then maybe I'll reconsider things a little bit because honestly, if I'm the Eagles, I don't know why I run a single pass play that whole game. I might throw the ball 3 times that whole game and just let Saquon beat them. So if they beat the Eagles, I'm going to be like, okay, that makes me rethink things a little bit. But realistically, you're not stopping the run against any decent run game as the 49ers right now.
No, you're not. And I think that they're where they're at, where Eagles are at. They're the one team too, of course, and to your point on this, that if there's a team in the books that would embrace that strat wholly and not get outside of it to think they have to pass, it would be the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They're
Hmm.
going to take that
Right.
open door all day, every day, all the time. So I would expect with you that you're going to see maybe 15 passing attempts on Hurts in the whole course of this game, and they're just going to run and run and run, and I can't blame them for doing so. I think
Yeah.
it would be impressive, the Niners, to your point, if they did stop them. But the one thing I would say with that is that the Eagles haven't exactly been playing their grade A brand of football down the stretch either, though. And that offense has not been. Saquon's at like 4.1 yard per carry average this year. They're just not been the same way with that.
Hmm.
But with that said, Hurts isn't going to make any mistakes. He's going to use his legs freaking twice, three times as much as he does in the regular season. And they're going to work it to Saquon over and over again. So I just think it's going to be a double-digit loss for the Niners.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It is worth noting that their offense, other than the Seattle game, has been very, very hot lately. They were playing historically good football until they ran into Seattle. So they might be the one team of the four that we can play that you can say is actually playing good football going into the postseason. Like, I don't think you can
Mhm.
say that the Packers are. I don't think you can say that the Rams really are, or, of course, the Panthers. Niners, maybe. And also, the Niners do have a lot of playoff experience on that roster. It is worth noting. Like, compared to a team like the Panthers or Bears, they've got a lot of guys who have been through it.
It's true. Absolutely is the case. It's definitely a tried and true tested bunch, and Shanahan's going to have them prepared for. And it'll be interesting to see what Saleh does with the game plan here this week. Stack up the box in a way you don't want to because you know you have to. Or you're like, look, if they beat us today, let's force them to beat us passing. I don't know what I would do. He's in a pickle. There's no easy answers on that one. They're hiring guys off the street who might be starting.
Yeah, and also the other thing to consider is if they find a way to beat the Eagles, in my head, it's just one of those exhausting, slug it out, drag it out games
Yeah.
where they would just give everything they got to win it, and then they got nothing left for the next week, while Seattle's been on a bye week. Like, to me, that's the other element here. Even if they find a way to beat Philly, you're talking about a Niners team that is probably just going to tip right over as soon as that game starts, in my mind.
I would think the same thing, especially walking into our house, having to travel up to the Pacific Northwest in that environment. And they're not going to be better health wise coming out of this game. So they're not going to be like, well, they get another extra guy back. Like they can only be kind of diminished. It's the point of wanting to be avoid these kind of opening round games if you can do so, because
Mhm.
there's a price to be told. And of course, you know this. These games are a little more intense, a little more hard hitting, a little more potential for those injuries to pop up because they just take. Everybody's laying it on the line, man. Nobody's saving anything for tomorrow.
And by the way, it sounds like they're not going to have Trent Williams or Ricky Pearsall this week either. So they have a big uphill battle.
Boy, Ricky cannot stay healthy, man.
Hmm.
Either gunshot wounds or just lower leg injuries. He just can't stay healthy.
Yep. Yep. As it turns out, that's the reason why the pick was bad. Not because he's a bad player. He's actually pretty good when he's out there. It's just,
Yeah,
what is it? What is it for?
yeah. Injury ends up getting him, I guess.
Hmm. Okay. So the next most likely opponent would, of course, be the Rams, who we play only if the Bears win, the Eagles win, and then, of course, the Rams win. So this is obviously probably the most intimidating of the four possible opponents because they've already beaten us once this year, and it's not a great matchup for Seattle. One thing that I would say, and this kind of goes back to something that you discussed earlier, and you're not a big fan of this, but I do want to bring it up here. You are often better off playing the toughest opponent early when you have the bye week because you get the benefit of the bye week, whereas the other team doesn't. So if you play the Rams in the NFC title game, you guys will have both just played in a game. Whereas you play them in the divisional round, you have the benefit of the bye week while they're coming off what could be kind of an ugly game against the Panthers. There is some benefit to playing them early, but as far as the matchup goes, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think too, to your point on this, I looked it up since 1990, when the playoffs expanded to 12 teams, initially with two top seeds getting buys. The number one seeds are 41 and 15 in the divisional round game. So that's a 73% winning percentage coming off that bye into the next game that you play off the bye. So that does lead to your point about the success these teams tend to have, and that it is one where you just tend to win that game. And I think that that's I'm not going to cry tears. We got to play the Rams. I think we're going to have to face them at some point or another anyway. So I completely get with that and understand that point. But I also would say that I don't think it's any guarantee that the Rams are going through the Eagles on the road in Philadelphia, a team that they've lost 3 times to. And
Right.
I kind of feel like in 2 years, and I feel like that's a bad matchup for them. And I think the Eagles coming into our house is a better matchup for us. I don't think it's an easy matchup. I don't think it's not going to be a challenge, but I think that we've got the means to be able to take away what they want to do. And that to me just has me going, that pathway would be a little easier, but both are going to be hard. Both are going to be a challenge. And I don't mind it if it's got to go with the Rams playing them, then let's go. I'm with it. I ain't scared of them. But it just, you want the easiest pathway going to the Super Bowl. I'm not one of those guys who I want it as hard as it possibly can be. I don't like, just give me the Super Bowl. And if there's an easier slip and slide downhill, turn on the hose full beam and let me go, I'll take that pathway first. I mean, that's just the way I'm wired with that a little bit.
Right. Right. So a couple things to consider with that potential matchup is unlike McDonald versus Shanahan, where I think we've now kind of learned that McDonald has Shanahan in his back pocket. Like you look at the history between those two guys, I feel pretty comfortable saying that McDonald kind of has Shanahan coming and going a little bit. Like 4 of the 5 matchups, he's done really well. There was one game last year where he didn't do well, but that was when he had Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker, didn't have Nwosu, didn't have DeMarcus Lawrence, didn't have a very good. I think Byron Murphy missed that game as well, by the way. Like there were a lot of things going against him in that game that had nothing to do with his game plan. So I think we can safely say that McDonald owns Shanahan. He doesn't own McVay. That matchup goes back and forth. And
Right.
like last time we played, McVay kind of ate McDonald's lunch, I thought. Like I thought McVay was just dominating him. And it wasn't until the fourth quarter when McDonald kind of got it together a little bit. But the previous game, McDonald got the better of Shanahan. Rams still won. You had the game last year where I thought the defense did really well against McVay, and then the Rams still won. Then, of course, you had that game in Baltimore where McVay definitely got the better of McDonald, and the Ravens still won. Ironically, the team that keeps getting outcoached still ends up winning in these matchups. But it is a back and forth matchup, and it can go either way. So I think that's a little bit, it's not really like a positive, but it's not a negative either. It's just one of those things where you have to accept that, hey, some days it's going to be the other guy's day. Some days it's going to be your day.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of saying it. And the best team will win out. The best players will win out when it's down, and the coaches kind of cancel each other out to that point. I think as well the second matchup was a little bit of an odd one because you've heard players talk about this. Julian Love talked about it yesterday, where there was just some small things that were adjustments within that they didn't make kind of in game, and they had a little bit of a complicated game plan for a short week. Love also talked about this week as well. Before he even spoke to this, he was speaking about something separately that goes to connect to this, which is that we get this very intricate game plan, and Thursday everybody's still kind of figuring it out, and then Friday we're getting the details down, and then by Saturday's walkthrough we've got it down pat, and then so you need like that rhythm of the week for an intricate game plan, like we would think Mike runs out. This just a pair to Julian's. Okay, that adds up to what he runs. That's what I know with Mike is he's going to want to run that a little bit. So what I estimate happened is Mike went, OS, I've got to take on this tough ass Rams offense. I haven't always had the right answers to them. I've got to come up with this crazy game plan here to try to combat what they're going to do. And then with the crazy game plan you kind of put together, it was too much, and the players didn't have enough time to get it all the ins and outs down. I think that you're going to get much more akin to maybe not 130 yards passing from the Rams offense like you did in the first game, but I think it's going to look a lot better if you had the extra week kind of there here in our preparation. Like we're preparing for all these teams right now through this week, and the game plan we're kind of presumptively putting together, which means we get to next week and you're not just putting it together kind of from scratch. You're starting to finalize right from the beginning stages of the week. And I think that, Brendan, you give Mike an extra week to prepare for any team in the sport. You give him a bye week. You give him that. I think he's the kind of coach that really, really utilizes that time to the utmost to bring up an even more intricate, crazy game plan to bear.
Right. Some other considerations on the other side for me would be, I don't think the Rams are playing very good football right now. Like the last month or even month and a half, you could say they lost to the Panthers, which I know the Panthers are in the playoffs. That's a bad team. The Panthers are bad. You should not be losing to them. They had the, of course, loss to Seattle, which was a crazy game, but they still lost it. And losing to the Falcons, I know that you were suggesting maybe the Rams were not particularly into that game. but it's still a
Hmm.
game that you should win if for no other reason than that it helps your first round pick next year. And they lost several draft slots because of that loss. And even the Cardinals game, I go back to that one, it's a 3-point game. Rams up by 3 in the third, late in the third. Jacoby Brissett hits a beautiful 60-yard play to Michael Wilson, and it looks like it's going to be a shootout for the rest of the way, but play gets called back on a penalty, and the Rams take control of that game at that point. Like, to me, that game was very competitive, and that's one of the worst teams in football. I know the final score was lopsided, but that game did not play out in a lopsided fashion. So I look at that Rams team and I say they're kind of playing their worst football, especially on defense. Their defense has not been good for a while now.
Yeah, they're trying to sign themselves up to the process that Quentin Lake's going to come in there and be a savior for the whole secondary and the defense kind of as a whole. I think you're right. The team as a whole is not playing good football. I think their special teams is lacking. I think that there's some problems there on that team, and I think as well that they're playing a cute game here a little bit from McVay's perspective. Maybe he's so smart on this, and maybe he's so understanding of how to get guys right, but back to that Falcons game, you're resting guys here, resting guys there. You're trying to just kind of keep an eye to the playoffs, just sort of just keep the stove top warm till you can get to that playoffs. And man, it's hard to just sort of overnight then ratchet up that intensity into a playoff game. You either have a standard you play at and you're at that level, and there's been a little bit of a protectivism thing with the Rams and how they've kind of run with these guys here on this. They are getting a lot of guys back. They are kind of almost similarly in equivalence to us as far as health wise, aside from other guys. It's the hamstring of Devontae Adams is a little dodgy, but he's supposed to be pretty much close to back to where he needs to be able to make a run fully at it. And Lake's coming back fully, and Higbee's going to be back out there. So they are returning guys into the ranks here on this. But like you say, man, it's just not a team playing its best football at the end of the season. And that's one of the big keys to going on a Super Bowl run is to be hot at the end of the season. And it's very rare that you just suddenly become hot in the playoffs. It's kind of like
Right.
the regular season goes into that playoffs and how you finished up.
Right. And also keep an eye on Stafford. The guy's 39 years old and has insane mileage on his body. It would not be a shock if, he might win MVP in the next few weeks here, but it would not be a shock to me if he runs out of gas in the postseason and just can't do it anymore the way he's been doing it all year.
Agreed. And one weird hit there, one hit there. If he's under, this is why I like the extra having them play the extra games to get to us, Brandon. That's part of that factor to me, where it's like it's not an old roster, but it's got some older elements to it in spots. And it is a roster that's built, I don't think, to have the same kind of depth we do if they sustain some certain injuries at certain points. You lose Devontae Adams this playoffs, I don't see them getting the Super Bowl. I don't know whether it's with us stopping or whoever, but they need him for that offense to work at its best. And I who knows on that if that's he's where he's at health wise and how that rolls. So they're a dangerous team. They're a team that I'd certainly is going to give us a hell of a challenge, but they've got some limitations too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the final team that we can talk about, and the least likely first round opponent, would be the Carolina Panthers. In order for us to play them, they would have to win, the Bears would have to win, and the Eagles would have to win. So there's probably like a less than 10% chance it's them. But I mean, we just played them. We beat them down pretty good in a game where, quite frankly, there were a lot of things going against Seattle. They still won by 3 scores. That you can really just put that Carolina offense in a box, and there's nothing they can do about it. Tampa Bay did it last week too. So I don't think there's much to say about that, except that's kind of a pretty easy win, you would think, if it happens.
Yeah, they're not walking in here with Bryce Young and giving us any problems whatsoever. I'm not a guy to go big confidence on all stuff in playoffs. Your playoff teams are good teams for a reason, but that team, the path they've had to do is just get to playoffs, then travel all the way out to our house. Like we would decimate them in our building, decimate them.
Yeah, they're not good at anything is the thing, right? They're not even good at running the ball. They ended up with a below average run EPA on the season. They don't rush the passer well. They don't stop the run well. They don't have a good defensive dropback EPA. They're legitimately bad at everything. The fact that they're in the playoffs is kind of like offensive to the NFL in general. I think it's like put Detroit in. Detroit would put up a better fight than these guys, I think.
Oh. I mean, it's really on Tampa Bay, and it's why Tampa Bay was thinking about firing their head coach. It's like the talent we have on this roster that we gave you and where this division's at. And you've got Baker Mayfield, and he's still performing really well. He wasn't the problem this year for that Tampa Bay team by all accounts. So it's like, and you have the offensive line they built up there, and you're looking at, I'm sure, from an ownership standpoint down to them in this division, you can't take this team down. It kind of doesn't add up or track in a lot of ways. To your point, it's like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It'd be a great matchup for us, though. You talk about the easiest path to get in the Super Bowl, like going to that second round. It's like, man, it would not get a simpler in that matchup. I'm not trying to overlook them, but I just think to your point on that, you took away the things they wanted to do. You put them in a box, and they had nowhere to go from almost like the first couple drives in the first quarter. It was over with. You didn't need to see any more tape. There was nothing they were going to be able to call upon or do at that point.
Yeah, they had like 19 rushing yards against Tampa. So one way or the other, their offense is just not going to be able to do anything against any decent defense. Tampa Bay's defense isn't even good anymore.
No, it's wild to watch because it was strong even, it seemed like, in the last year, but they fell off a cliff. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. And obviously this only happens if the Panthers beat the Rams. But even if that happens, I imagine it would be kind of like a 2010 Seahawks type of thing where some crazy stuff happens, more so than the Panthers finding their next gear and suddenly becoming some great team. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and grinded out games in the playoffs. It's less of these things where you'll see 3-score type games like you would in a regular season, because coaches are going to be safe in the best of times. A coach like McDonald's going to be super safe with his defense, and that's again come back to that conservative nature and how you're going to kind of run things, but by design, but conservative.
Yeah. Yeah. If they beat the Rams, it'll probably be because Stafford threw like 2 pick sixes or something because he's turning into a pumpkin because he's old. It'll be something like that.
Well, to your point, they play off coverage, cover 3 a lot. And why do they have the picks last time when it comes to that, and why that can be problematic? Because you have pretty good corners in Jackson and Horn out there, is that now Stafford's got to throw that with a little bit more of the anticipation off the break. And if those guys jump, like if it's an in-cutting route and he's off coverage, right? He's not running step for step from in the break. There's some initial separation. You're anticipating the separation. And if the guy drives on the route, drives on the in break, drives on the out break, Stafford doesn't really have a chance at that point to make a decision with that. He has to sort of just throw it and trust that he's making the right read off the leverage. And that's where there can be some, if with a guy like Stafford who's committed to pushing the ball down the field, committed to pushing the ball into tight windows at times, that's where you can have a game of 2 or 3 interceptions, because you are going to do that, and they're going to be in the right place to take that away. So could be a little bit of the mitigating factor in this game. But all that being said, Panthers had to own and control the ball last time. Like you just said, they don't really run the ball particularly well. They're not going to probably replicate that. You had rains coming down every time the Rams offense stepped on the field. And when they stepped off the field, Panthers seemed to have clear skies. That's probably not going to happen again.
Right.
You're probably not going to get the interceptions from Stafford in a playoff game. He's going to probably play a little bit more cleaner and under control in this one because he's a vet. But they got a chance, man,
Yeah. I mean, it could be like the 2010 Seahawks against the Saints. It actually kind of lines up. Both.
It does kind of line up.
That Seahawks team was bad. This Panthers team is bad too. But I mean, this isn't college football, right? This isn't Alabama against Troy. This is 2 NFL teams.
Wild things can happen. And I'll tell you this, the Panthers, though they aren't great at running the ball, they have the means to do so. They got a big, bad offensive line. They got a couple of running backs. Bryce can intermix his legs in there in a playoff game and utilize that here and there, especially the Rams front that wants to run the front 4 and all those twists and stunts. Those twists and stunts open the door for the quarterback to go get scrambling yards very easily. And so maybe parts of this they could, bury in on this. We'll see.
So at the end of the day, I'm feeling really good about every possible matchup except for the Rams. And I don't feel bad about the Rams, but to me, the other 3, I do the math, and I don't really see a loss against any of those teams because of their clear weaknesses at this point.
Agreed. I think we've got things that we can hold them to account on. We've got the means, part of having a complete team like we do. We can really, what is it to make your weak at? We've got a strength there to combat that. And I think we would do with all those teams, to your point. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a moment to tell the people about the sponsor of the show today, which is Sleeper. Can you, while I set up, just tell them a little bit about what's going on with the boys over at Sleeper?
100%. Me and Brandon are both being sponsored by the Sleeper app. This is the #1 sports app out there that is in the game, in our opinion, on this, not just because they're supporting us, but because this is an app that gives you a lot of flexibility in the type of picks you can pick. You want to get into daily fantasy, weekly fantasy, you want to pair up basketball, football, baseball, be around the corner, put all 3 together if you can. Put two at one time together. You can put together nice tickets here. They got boosts set up on this, like you can see here on the pick on sale Brendan's got on this. So they've got these nice little kind of what you call almost freebie things they can put in here. But when you use our code, either SBN for Brendan, or for me, it's going to be Nest. Use this code when you put in your first deposit up to $100, and they'll match you up to $100 on your first deposit. And there's also a $20 freebie entry, no deposit needed. Just create a login. They'll put $20 in your accounts. That's $120 from Brendan and me to you through the Sleeper app. And they go out there, get some picks, put your football knowledge to the test this playoffs, go make some money. Brendan's got some great picks up here right now.
Yeah, I got Josh Jacobs over 59.5, so that's 60 or more rushing yards. I think that Bears defense not really going to be stopping the run. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in that game. That's a pick on sale, by the way. Normally the over-under is set at like 74, but they give you a little bit of a break here. I also got Saquon Barkley scoring an anytime touchdown against the 49ers. Hard to believe he doesn't get in the end zone. It would take like 4 Jalen Hurts tush pushes at the goal line to prevent that. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, also going the under on 0.5 interceptions, because there's no way Jalen Hurts is going to throw an interception. He's going to throw the ball like 6 times all game. And I got Loveland with over 4.5 catches. So that's 5 or more, because I think that game will be a shootout. And I think both teams are going to have big offensive numbers for their guys. So that will go 8.69 if that ticket hits. So get on over to Sleeper, put together your own ticket. Remember to use the promo code. We have NEST on screen right now. There's also SBN, which is my code. Either way, $100 match on your first deposit up to $100. And don't forget about that free $20 bet as well. So that is
Terms
Sleeper.
and conditions do apply. See their site for details.
Yes. All right. Beautiful. So, yeah, okay. That is good. All right. So we got some more donos to get through here. We've got Malfair. Thank you for the $2 Canadian. Who replaces Kubiak? Any good promotable coaches? So Kubiak now has been requested for an interview with 5 different teams, which to me pretty strongly indicates that if he wants a head coaching job, he is going to get it. It's very hard to get 5 teams in on you. The only way, in my opinion, it doesn't happen is if the only job he wants is Atlanta, because I think that is probably like his dream spot. And he wouldn't want to go to the Raiders or the Cardinals because those are not good organizations. Maybe he would say, no, thank you. And maybe Baltimore, he would be like, Lamar doesn't fit my offense. I don't really want to be a part of that. Maybe he only wants Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta finds somebody else. Other than that, though, I think he's gone. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be as picky on stuff too. I think that the track record, you're not wrong for bringing it up. It's been brought up in my chat a lot by people saying, well, he would be better served to try to pick a good landing zone versus, and I get that, but I just think when you look at the history of coaches being offered head coaching jobs that are OCs, they don't really take that into account. You know, I mean, I did Jonathan Gannon a couple of years ago when the Cardinals hired him and he was being forced to have to make Kyler Murray work. Was that his ideal scenario, right? Was that really what he wanted to do? Or was it like, yeah, I got to take it and hope I can make this work? And I think that's what Kubiak will do too. I do think at this point that it's much more, it's like 75% chance to me that he's out the door. It's probably going to be him having to crap the bed when it comes to an interview at this point to not have him get a job. And hey, you even got the Miami job now open. So there's one more that'll probably come a call and asking about him too.
Yeah. Keep an eye on Buffalo, by the way. If they do lose this weekend, I think McDermott's out and they'd probably call around Kubiak too.
Yeah, I think that this is not yet done as far as maybe the number of teams that are going to do this. And so there's just not enough great viable candidates this year that are on the open market, unfortunately. It's Stefanski, it's Harbaugh, and then there's really not anybody that you're hearing about, even name-wise, from the old guard being talked about
Doug
and bandied about
Peterson.
here.
That's how deep we're digging here, people. Doug Peterson.
We're going to the bottom of the well on this one. And so he's probably going to get it. The good news is that we did have the one presumptive guy that I had been looking at this whole time saying, man, if we do lose him to go to this guy, we might actually find ourselves in a quasi potential lateral move at worst, maybe. And that is in McDaniels, who did lose his job this morning. I think the one hard part with this one becomes Brendan. Kubiak gets the interviews, phone interview wise. He has a couple teams that are hot to trot on him to do the in-person. Can't do the in-person until he gets through us on the Super Bowl run or whatever. We get a Super Bowl run. And then they have him at that point, but then McDaniels already has a job as an OC somewhere else. You see what I'm saying on this, on the timeline with it? That could end up screwing this up a little bit. So this could get sticky is what I'm saying on this. Sticky in a similar fashion when we hired Mike McDonald on almost a reverse on this, where he's trying to put his staff together late a little bit, and it gets hard to find as many of the grade A options.
I wonder if the NFL could do anything about it, like make it so teams can't hire a coach until after the Super Bowl or something. If there's some way they could just prevent, because it seems like a very goofy issue to have happen pretty much every offseason.
It really does. I think too, it's in my opinion, it should be even with these interviews. I think that they should have to wait to interview these guys. You really want in on this guy? You have all these potential guys that are out there on the streets that don't have a job, but you're saying these guys have got to be the guys of the final teams that you really like. Well, then wait if it's so worthwhile to you. If you're so sure, I don't think they should even. I'm glad they're not having to. They used to do, Brendan, this thing where these guys would fly out in the middle of game planning of the week. And the NFL put a kibosh on that. So that was at least good that they weren't doing that. Can you imagine that? I got to put a game plan. I got to fly out here got to fly to Atlanta, got to fly out to Miami, come back. And like you're trying to do a game plan at the same time and work with your players. But it's one to me that's just, it punishes us, the teams that are in the playoffs and, detracts in a way that should not. And that these teams, if you really want them this way, what's 3 weeks difference to you? I understand you want to, we got to get going on this. We got to get them, we got to figure out I get that. But you also fired a guy, made a poor choice, so you got to pay the price for that a little bit too. The other team shouldn't have to pay the price for your bad decision making and who you hired. So I hate it in that way, but hopefully if he does go, you can find a way to talk to McDaniels and say, hey, we've got the most attractive place for you to come here to have success. But we'll see how it goes. Timing is going to work out big on this one.
Yeah. The only guy I know of that would be promotable would be either Jake Peets or Janoko. And Kubiak might take Janoko with him is the thing, because Janoko's followed Kubiak wherever he's gone for a little while now. Same with John Benton. So that's the thing. You might not only lose Kubiak, you might lose Janoko and Benton, and you're kind of starting over.
Yeah, and I got to say, I'm not a big fan of the in-house hiring, and I'm kind of it's kind of weirds me out that we're hearing some Hawk fans that are kind of thinking about doing that, because we've had so little luck with that on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. So I would be more, we're going to be a Super Bowl team next year, Brendan. Do you really want to go with a guy that's never called offensive game play calls in the NFL before?
Yeah.
Do you really want to go into next year with that being what you're starting out with, to have a guy that's going to learn the lumps while you've got a team and a roster that's ready to go? I mean, that just makes
it's kind of like what Philly's doing this year, right? With I can't even remember his name, but they got a dud.
Exactly. And to your point on that, very well could be if they're going to get sunk this year, that's probably the laundry list front of why they get sunk, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. If LaFleur gets fired and nobody picks him up as a head coach, would you think about maybe hiring him as an OC?
Sure. Either LaFleur. I mean, I'd reach out to both the Rams and the Niners on this as well and say, hey, you're an OC here, LaFleur and Kubiak with the Niners, but you're not able to call the plays. So how about you come here and you actually get to call the plays, which will actually give you a pathway to becoming a head coach. Hey, we just had our former OC hired as head coach. So we've got a nice pathway for you to get there. You're never going to get there under McVay's shadow, under Shanahan's shadow. I would also try to do something like that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to see how things break here over the next, let's say Buffalo fires McDermott, gets an offensive-minded head coach in there. Who do they have right now? Is it Joe Brady? Maybe he needs to get another OC job. Maybe you hire him. I like Joe Brady.
I'm potentially open to it. My ideal is to find just the first and foremost thing that's kind of the no negotiation for me is I want a guy who's called plays in the past as an OC and has had success as an OC in the past. I'd like those to be my two prerequisites. And then we can kind of go from there on, ideally outside zone, ideally Shanahan acolyte, but I'm not going to that's got to be hard line, Brendan, right? It can be other, but you'd like to go as much like for like with an established play caller here so that we don't have to go through some growing pains of learning this and learning that in a year where we should be ready to hit the ignition switch. It's time to put the rocker booster into orbit.
Okay. What about the old Nugget Mike Kafka? We've talked about him a lot over the years.
No.
He's called plays before. He has.
I just, has he had success doing so? And the plays that he's called have been in a lot of parts out of this stupid ass RPO shotgun. This is where the game's going away from, is the shotgun, using your quarterback as a runner, everything being simplified on their approach, little pop passes into space. The game's moving to place now, Brendan, where it's under center and it should be more of the outside zone stuff. So I don't like that offense. I don't want to run that offense. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there could be a couple other guys that shake free as well. What if Tampa Bay gets rid of their OC this year, the guy who replaced Cohen? I can't remember his name, but I do like him. hold on one second here. This is going to bug me all day if I can't remember. Oh, Josh Grizzard. He is good. I do like Josh Grizzard. If he is pushed out in Tampa because of what happened at the end of the season, I would definitely look at that guy and go, I think that guy knows football really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. It's a little bit of a different offense too to the designs of what it's doing, but it's got enough there that would be similar that that could work.
Mm-hmm. All right. So yeah, a lot of interesting conversations to have this offseason if we lose Kubiak, but there are going to be some guys out there.
Yeah, we'll find a replacement as long as we don't get too deep and lose them too late, and then all the options are off the table, of course.
Ski Nation, thank you for the $5. If we trade for Max Crosby, should we just start calling him Maxed Crosby out the gate? Imagine his hype if he came here, he would invent a new gear.
It would be that's a great nickname, man. I can't come up with a better one on that. And that I do think that you are going to potentially have a guy that you'll get a new gear to his game, going to a place where he gets a chance to win. Or we've had this happen a couple times with recent players added to our team. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It definitely looks like now absolute, almost positive certainty that he's going to be moved this offseason. But they're also looking for 3 first-round picks, so we'll see where the bidding war goes to on this. We're not going to be the only ones in on this, and that's going to be the hard part, is that we'll have the intention to get him, but somebody may supersede us with what they're willing to give up for him.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I did another mock draft a few days ago on the channel, and I've been looking at draft stuff because that's what I do. Of course, we always are looking at draft stuff no matter what. And, you know, you look at what you can get in that first round this year, especially with where we're probably going to be picking. It's pretty bad. There's not a lot there that is intriguing to me in any way, shape, or form. So if we can flip that pick, even with other picks for a proven veteran player, I am all over that. Like I want out of that late first round area.
I'm in the same way. I think that this is a first round where we'll be picking a second round player in any other draft. And maybe not even a high second round player where we might be like, well, any other draft, this would be like a late second round pick. It's a lot of high floor guys without much ceiling. You're not seeing much difference makers in this draft, Brendan. Beyond the quarterback thing that gets, of course, caught up upon over and over again. That's really at the heart of this. So I'd be totally on board with doing it too. And Crosby would be just the guy I'd look to attack, because I've looked through the list, Brendan. There's not 3 Crosbys that'll be available. Like, he's going to be kind of one-of-one this offseason. And he's one of one that would be a perfect addition to your defense for what will be kind of also a quiet need. I just think it makes too much sense. And I hope John is willing to put down the pedal forward. I would applaud it tremendously if he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I might do the 3 first round picks just because this first rounder is so weak. I don't know. I would hope that you could get him to come down a little bit from that. But, I mean, there should be some punishment, right, for them not trading him at the deadline when they should have. Like, there should be some depressed pricing because of that.
Well, and he's just had cleanup surgery on his knee. Are you maxing out what your returns are? And I did, kind of to your point, think that they could have gotten more of a max at the deadline than they were going to get this offseason if they waited. The part that makes it hard to tell in this, Brendan, is how much you're going to be able to hold him aligned to. You just signed a contract last year, so now you're going to have to wait 3 years for us to sign you the new deal. As opposed to, if I trade for him, I've got to actually give him the money. And that's going to be a key point to what they can get back in return, on top of the bidding war that'll exist out there. Right. Probably doesn't come down to 3 first round picks. I'm with you. I'd be probably tempted. I think you probably are ending up able to do this with like a 2 1s, a second next year, and then a player or something will probably be enough to get it kind of done. But I'd be tempted too. We don't need a quarterback in the future. We got a stack roster. You look at it and go,
definitely. Jay Malfair, thank you for the $5 Canadian. When Darnold lifts the Lombardi, Stephen A. Smith will complain that he's seen Lombardi's ghost out there. The big media folk use that lazy narrative.
It's media folk. It's people on the outside in looking in. The criticism of Sam has been pretty wild to watch to me, because it's not that he's a perfect quarterback or without criticism. It's just that they hammer the same drum over and over again and hit it at the same beat, and they have nothing new under the sun to offer as any criticism within his game. And that's partly representative of how good the rest of his game is. But it's gotten old, it's gotten tired. And the people that keep trotting this type of stuff out are they're showing their colors of how little football they actually watch.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm hoping that I don't have to deal with the off season of people trying to run him out of town. That's we've talked about this before. It's like 5 off seasons in a row where a significant portion of the Seahawks fan base wanted to get rid of their quarterback, and I'm tired of it. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen this offseason. But unless we win the Super Bowl, it probably will.
Yeah, it may be so, but you and I will be here fighting the fight because we understand what we've got in Sam, what we have in this team, and where they're going. And, he's a part of what's got you to the 14 wins here. He's a big part of what's got you to the 14 wins, and it can't be undersold. So, people can do all the complaint they want. They can have starry eyes for other Burrow. We make a trade for Burrow. Like, this is our guy. It's going to be our guy going into the future, and we're very lucky to have him.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, for the 199, Packers have one sack in the last 7 games.
They moved Ryan Clark at the same time as picking up Parsons. So it's kind of the key here with it is that you not only lose Parsons, but you lose Clark. And now you can slide double teams to Rashawn Gary and he can get chips because you don't have to worry about anybody else in that defensive line for the Packers. They didn't get Lucas Van Ness to come forward. He just is not, the light bulb's not come on there. So they are where they're at. They don't have a lot they can do. And you're right. It's a limiting factor, that defense, in a major way. And they knew it. That's why they made the Parsons trade. That's why they threw all the money at him and the picks is they were like, man, we need to do something because this defense is not going to be enough, flat out.
Yeah. And I think they were right to do it. It's just not going to work out, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, it's different if they have Parsons there. They're a couple games more won. They're looking a little bit better in this playoffs and they're dangerous at that point. You got, with what he was doing with that defense. So yeah, it's a big loss.
Sean McLeodart, thank you for the $1.99. Asked last week about Bobo run blocking, seemed to show up. I don't know if this is supposed to be showed up positive or negative because the play I remember from Bobo last week was him trying to block and getting completely destroyed by Upton Stout on the perimeter in front of K9. So I'm not sure.
I think it's the run block on the K9 3rd and 17. He was one of the He was one of the key blocks on that one, but you're right about the ball screen one where he just did not get the block laid in right. So yeah, he's out there for the run blocking element when he comes out there, and that's been the good part of his game when he's been out there. The receiving stuff's gone backwards a little bit, but he still does, for the most part, outside that ball screen, Brendan, he does tend to bring good run blocking ability out on the perimeter.
Yeah, and Upton Stout weighs like 30 pounds, so that was really embarrassing.
Yeah. I know, man. It's one where he usually lands that block. I don't know why that was one that gave him so many fits because it looked like a pretty straightforward block to get landed, but he sort of seemed confused and caught in between, and something that can happen on some reps.
Yeah, and that might have been a first down too if he hits that block. Like Walker had some space. It was not that far away from the first down marker. That's a big play in that game. So hopefully we don't see that again.
Hopefully not. That's been the part of his game that's been pretty consistent though, so I don't think we will.
Sean McLeodart again, thank you for the $1.99. Rams aren't ready for Mike Jack to toss you into a bench. Well, he does get a little too amped up for these big moments, it seems like, so I guess it's possible.
Yeah, I guess we can hope that he tosses Puka into a bench.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams, it doesn't take much. He's at the point now where that hamstring is just looking for reasons to get injured, it seems like.
It ain't 100% coming out there. He's hoping that thing doesn't pull, but I would be very surprised at his age after that hammy that he had, that he's back 4 weeks later and it's fine. It's one thing when you're a young player, but to your point, in your 30s, is like that stuff heals extra slow.
Right. So yeah, we'll see what Mike Jack does this weekend too. I mean, I'm sure that no, wait, he did actually play in a playoff game for Seattle when he was here against the Niners. So he's one of the few guys on that roster with a little bit of playoff experience. So they'll be looking to him a little bit.
Amen.
And, maybe he learned something from Jonathan Abram, because when Abram was here, remember the Debo play that kind of woke the Niners up? It was, what was it? He grabbed a guy's leg and wouldn't let it go and was getting up and
twisted it.
Yeah. So maybe he learned something from Abram on that day.
Never know. This is probably going to take that to beat the Rams.
All right, we got Kyle with another $4.99 here. Seems like Seattle is taking souls out of teams and fan bases. Teams look tired and hurt, and the fan base is full of excuses while looking defeated. Yeah, it's a little like Detroit last year, right? Detroit had that stat last year where every time they played a team, that team would just kind of no show for their next game.
Yeah, It's physical teams cause this. If you're a hyper physical team, you beat up on teams. It's a 1 week to get back to the next game. Your body doesn't always get back onto it. And that is the hallmark of how we're doing it. I think when it comes to excuses, and specifically, I think 49er fans, Ram fans, 49er fans, I think it's understandable what the excuses they give. You don't want to admit that you've got a new team that's rising to the top of this division that's about to take over the prominence that you've enjoyed for the last 6 years. It's not a fun reality to have to face. And it's one that's hard as any of those two fan bases to look at and not think this is what's about to happen here.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, hopefully they can keep it up. Hopefully they can continue it into the postseason.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you.
Samuel Carlson, defense relies on communication. Will noise be a problem? Yeah, I've heard people talk about this before. What do you think?
Yeah, I have heard this talked about. I think that the reporters did a good job of addressing this with Julian Love in the press conference yesterday, Samuel. So I would offer to you to go back and take a look at the Julian Love presser and him being asked a couple of different questions on this. And he speaks to the fact that initially with Mike McDonald's defense last year at home, this was a problem, and a little bit of the reason why they weren't better at home, defensively speaking, because they were working their way through that. He feels that they have solved that with hand signals. He feels that they've solved and been able to find ways to still communicate around that in the environment. A lot of people are saying, well, it was probably that Rams game, considering how loud it was in that environment, that was probably causing some of the defensive struggles. He points to specifically within the press conference saying, no, we were just not on certain details of the plays. It wasn't lack of communication. It was that we just didn't get down to the details that we needed to be on those plays like we would have. I point back to that being the short week and the complex game plan that you tried to trot out there. But this is why as Julian also says in the press conference, this is partly why the defense has found substantially good play at home now this year, is that they've solved this issue. They've been able to work their way around it. I do not expect it to be a major problem. Julian also talks about how, and he says it with complaints, by the way, where he's like, they played those 16 loudspeakers on the practice field to prep us on this. And I don't really like that, but that's why you're doing that, is to lock in the hands. So they're doing all they can to kind of prepare for this, which should mitigate some of that as an issue, on top of it being solved better the longer that McDonald's been here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not terribly worried about it. We've seen this defense play very well at home over the last couple of years at times as well. I know that there's some sense that we're better on the road, but I don't believe we're better on the road. I think that a small sample size indicates we might be, and that's not enough to make me believe we're better off playing on the road.
No, and you've had some tougher matchups at home. If you look at the losses, even the last 2 years, last year Minnesota team, last year Packer type team, right? You've had more pretty good high quality teams come through too. That's also a measurement on this as well.
Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2. Why isn't any team requesting an interview with DA? Who is DA?
That's DA would be Aiden Dirty. I think he meant AD.
So yeah. Well, the Browns did. Yeah, the Browns did.
The Browns did. We'll see how much interest they have in it. There is a little bit of that. The Rooney Rule comes into play on this, where you sometimes wonder, is there true interest here, or are you guys trying to just make sure you cover your tuchus? I hope it will be interesting to see if it is true interest on their part there. The main reason you haven't is the same reason you don't see a Kubiak with Shanahan getting any looks. Not our Kubiak, but Shanahan's Kubiak. The same reason that you don't see LaFleur not getting head coaching looks. And I'm not talking about the LaFleur and Packers. I'm talking about the LaFleur with the Rams. If you don't call plays, it's very hard for you to become the head coach. You can have it happen, and Andy Reid's had a couple of assistants that have been able to get head coaching jobs without calling plays, but it tends to be a prerequisite if you're going to become a head coach that you've done it, that you've had success at doing it, and we haven't done that with Dirty. Of course, McDonald calls the plays.
Right. Yeah, I don't expect AD to get a head coaching job this offseason, but if we're really good again next year, you might see it happen then. There might be there is a sense that he's very valuable and very good with what he does on the defensive line. And I think that'll be appealing to somebody at some point, but feels like it's a little early.
Yeah, I agree. I think that everything you just said with that's on point. I think that you give him another year, and if this defense replicates the performance of this season, that he will start to get that interest because just how good this defense has been, and people are going to want in on that action. And think that he's glommed a lot off of McDonald working underneath him for that couple of years, whether he's called the plays or not. So yeah, I would I'd agree with that fully.
Seth, thank you for the $1.99. Do you think Robert Saleh or Chris Shula get a head coaching job? It seems like Shula from what I've heard. I
Saleh
can
just
still
got a
use
new
that.
agent. He's going to have a job. He just
Yeah.
got a new agent.
I think both
He's
these guys
absolutely,
do. I
yeah.
think both these guys will. If I had to pick one, I'd say Shula, probably because the Niners defense did fall off a cliff at the end of the year, but I think there's an understanding that had more to do with the players than the coach.
Yeah, I think and I'm on the other end of it where I would say feel like Saleh's got the better chance of it because I think teams are going to look at the injury situation. Number one, they're going to look at the Jets situation and that you got the short end of the stick on that when it came down to that particular thing as well.
Mhm.
So I would probably point to that too within this. I think you're right. Just both of them end up getting a job. Stefanski gets a job. Harbaugh gets a job. But we've got 6, 7 jobs available. So it's like, and who's the next 3 on that? And those are 2 of the bright candidates though, and I do think that they get it when it's said and done.
Right. Jesse Minter probably gets a job as well. It sounds like he's getting a lot of love.
Yeah, he might. He's definitely a guy that's a possibility there. I can see that. I think Shula
Yeah.
definitely ahead of him, but we'll see how many defensive minded head coaches get jobs. That's still one. I still think if there's 6 jobs available, we're going to get 1 or 2 that are defensive minded head coaches, maybe at most.
Yeah, people are hyping up Brian Flores maybe getting one. I'm not so sure about that, but he has had a couple of really nice years. I guess it's not impossible.
I think he gets paired. He gets paired with some offensive coordinator where Raiders maybe put a package together, like we'll bring this offensive guy going and then we'll have him paired with Flores and give him a lot of money. And it seems like that's a little bit where he's heading.
Yeah, I like it. Promise, thank you for the member message. Who do we want to see in the divisional? We spent like 45 minutes talking about it earlier in this stream. So if you want the full discussion of that, definitely go back and watch the earlier part of this stream. But for me, the short version is, I think in terms of like the easiest possible opponent, it's the Panthers of the 4 teams we could play. I'm also I feel really good about beating the Packers as well.
Yeah, I think it goes Panthers, 49ers, Packers, Rams is the order for me as far as pecking order promise of what I'd like to see most to least.
Yeah, I just don't respect that Packers team very much right now. They can't stop anything on defense. And I guess I will say the one thing is McDonald has only coached against a LaFleur offense once in his career, and it was last year, and LaFleur got him pretty good. So I guess that's the one mitigating factor here, but I just don't respect that Green Bay team very much.
No, and I think it's a little bit of a different Green Bay team too, I think this year than what they were last year. I just don't, that offensive line's not performing as well. I don't think Jacobs is as good. But it's still a dangerous offense and it's got a lot of parts. They can attack you in a variety of ways. LaFleur scripts up really nice stuff. And if he can script up good stuff for Love, that's the first read open stuff, which he can at times. That's where they get very hard to deal with because he's got some creative stuff he does in that offense. And it ain't on Love as much, everything's then really premeditated for Love very easily.
Right.
At that point.
All right. Alex Schuss, thank you for the 1999. Big one right here. Your guys' prediction on the way the playoffs pan out. Do you think there's any chance the Rams aren't the Hawks' divisional opponent? Hope you guys are doing well. I love your content, Brandon.
Let me give him a 20. Let me give a little applause there. Thank you for that, Alex. For the $20 drop. First time.
Oh, and he followed it up with this. I'm so sorry. I just realized I spelled your name wrong, Brendan. A lot of people do. It's not that
he gets Brandon and I get Brendan, which is the great irony. It's easy to go reverse on that versus the actuality. So it's all good there, Alex.
Anyway, like I said earlier in the show, I think our chances of playing Green Bay in the first round are actually over 50% because the only thing that has to happen is Green Bay wins. So I don't think the Rams are even our most likely divisional opponent. In fact, they are the third most likely in my mind, because again, you just look at the chain of events that needs to happen in order for a certain opponent to be there.
Yeah, I see it the same way. I have the Packers winning this game this week, Alex. And so I do have them coming to play us. I think the Rams win. They go to play the Eagles. I think the Eagles take down the Rams because they just have their number and they have to go on the road. And that's a tough matchup. I think then we take down the Eagles at home and we go to the Super Bowl and we take on the Buffalo Bills and we take down the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I might. Yeah, that might be kind of what I'm thinking as well. I think that in the Super Bowl, though, I'm wondering if I might be thinking like Houston, honestly. I'm starting to come around on that idea of Houston being the team that gets through here.
They would be mine. It would be one A for me between Houston and Buffalo. I can completely understand how Houston gets there. They do have certainly the type of team that can get it done. Um, so it's even Kevin. It just kind of feels like this might be the year where Josh Allen doesn't have to go through Baltimore, doesn't have to go through Kansas City. A little bit more of an opened up AFC, and as good as the Texans are with that, I think a guy like Allen can be a bit of a equalizer in the way that he can play when he goes into Superman mode in the playoffs. So I could go either way with that too. Texans absolutely could be the opponent. I think we take down whoever we got to face, because I think the AFC is weaker than the NFC when it's all said and done this year. And so yeah, I feel confident in that.
I hope it's those boys in Duval, though. I really do. I want it to be them.
You want
Duval.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go with Duval. Bring in Duval.
And don't count them out, by the way. They are a much better team than they were when we played them back in week 6 or whatever it was. They're doing some real good stuff right now.
Yeah, they added Jacoby Myers. They've got Trayvon Walker had a cast on his hand, I think, in that game. You had no Devin Lloyd. I don't think that we played in that game. So yeah,
didn't have their tight end. Brenton Strange was out, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. It's being reported that Trent Williams is on track. Now,
there we go.
I don't know. Kyle Shanahan tends to be very optimistic about this injury stuff, I think, and then his optimism often doesn't bear out in reality, or he puts a player on the field when they shouldn't be out there, and then they just make it worse. That's like Kyle Shanahan's biggest weakness. He runs his players into the ground, and he has no respect for their bodily limits.
That's the way he rolls, man. And he's definitely he's squirrely when it comes to injury updates. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he's just trying to mess around with Philadelphia, but he already knows in the back of his head Trent Williams is not playing.
I can see it. I can really see it.
Yeah, he kind of did it with us. Like the Trent Williams 0 practice last week, and he still listed him as questionable. Like, who's falling for that? The guy's 38 years old almost, and he's playing with no practice after a hamstring injury. It's not happening.
This is coach's catnip, man. Mike McDonald does the same thing, and they can't help themselves. They think they're playing some sort of like cloak and dagger game with the injury stuff. And it's like, is he going to play? Maybe not. Maybe never. Maybe so. Maybe. And Mike does this all the time too, where it's like they think that they're forcing the opposition to prepare for all these extra players. I don't really know if there's really that. It just is kind of like try hard coach stuff to me when it comes down to it.
Mumbles, thank you for the $5. Would you guys take the over on 45 for Bears Packers? I like the overs and unders more than picking on the money line. I think I would. The only thing that concerns me is it's probably not going to be great conditions for that game, Chicago in January.
Yeah, I would tend to probably lean towards the under because of the fact that I think that the Packers are going to try to protect their defense as much as anything with the game planning and Josh Jacobs and just, trying to grind drives out as much as taking shots down the field. And Bears have DeAndre Swift in a solid rushing attack, so I'd expect them to do the same.
I don't think the Bears can get to the quarterback. I'm sorry, the Packers can't get to the quarterback at all. So I do kind of suspect that it cannot help but turn into a little bit of a shootout at some point.
Ben Johnson's also played in the playoffs recently, though, and has had a lot of history with Detroit on understanding how they've had their wins and their losses and how games have played. So I think that's also a part of this that could factor in where he understands you gotta run the ball a little bit. Give me one sec, Brendan. I'll be right back.
No problem. Ski Nation, thank you for the $5. If we get Max, please steal Max Crosby and make it popular. I'm surprised I thought of that. I mean, it is pretty good, Ski Nation. It works pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people in Las Vegas who are Raiders fans who have kind of already taken that up and run with it because it does lend itself very well. Oh, we have I think he put the earbuds so close to the micro. Really, that's interesting. There's a little bit of an echo with me.
It's me. One sec.
Okay. Huh. Weird.
Check it down.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Should be good.
Yeah,
now.
we're good.
Sorry about that, folks. All right. Yep. Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. Right. So yeah, it works pretty well. I do like that. All right. We'll give Brandon a second to come back here, but thank you everybody for coming out. By the way, if you haven't already, please like the stream. Whatever stream you're on, I have 2 streams running, one for vertical, one for horizontal. Hawk's Nest has a stream as well. Wherever you are, please give the stream a like. Give a subscription if you are new to our channels. We both do a lot of Seahawks content. And yeah, I think that's about all I can say. Keep an eye out for more videos from me later today. Keep an eye out for more streams from Brandon. Those will be coming, of course. Obviously, we're chilling out on this bye week, but let me see here. Let me see if there's any Seahawks news over the last couple of minutes. Yeah, I don't see anything. Good. Okay. All right. Okay. So, yeah, just this super chat talking about the Maxed Crosby nickname. That
I will steal that. That's going on the title of my thumbnail when we sign him. Ski. Seahawks go Max.
Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2. Dable, Leftwich, or Harbaugh as potential OC. Well, I think Dable's a bad fit for a few different reasons. The Dable thing to me is like, I talked about this before, but Wink Martindale and Brian Dable clearly broke up very, very bad. It was a messy breakup. And Martindale is kind of McDonald's mentor. So I imagine McDonald would give Martindale a call and ask him about Dable. And we know exactly what Martindale would say about Dable, and that would close the door on that. So I don't think that works.
Yeah, again, too, just like for the same reason on non-Kafka there, Mark Sanchez, I don't want to run shotgun RPO with Sam Brett I mean, that Dable goes from Buffalo, shotgun spread concepts, Josh Allen, shotgun spread concepts, college stuff. He goes to the Giants. He churns Daniel Jones into shotgun spread concepts. None of us, I think, would believe on this that you're going to be able to run Sam Darnold out of shotgun RPO where he's going to like keep it 8 times a game and go run with the ball. So it's just not an offense that fits to what we want to be doing going the forward.
That's like a Jalen Milroe offense if we decide to go that route. Like maybe that would work there. Maybe Leftwich. I don't mind Leftwich, but hasn't he been out of football for a couple years now? Yeah. Like there's clearly not a lot of respect for him.
I wouldn't go for Leftwich when he was here and he was doing his quote unquote greatest work. It was when Tom Brady was running the offense. And Leftwich, I appreciate the suggestion, I do, but it's just these would be the very antithesis of guys of what I'm talking about, which is established play callers that works within this offense. We don't have to reset the offense and change everything up wholly anew, basically taking us back to scratch on the learning process across the board. That's the part where I really want to avoid that, and I think we can avoid that. I don't think we have to go down the road of a Dable and rechanging the offense or let's go to the air raid and go back to that. Like, let's stay with like for like on this a little bit. And with Jay Harbaugh, he's a special teams coach. He knows nothing about offense. So
does he
I appreciate the suggestion. I do, but
does he mean John Harbaugh? Because
it means Jay
John
Harbaugh.
Okay. Because if it's John
Harbaugh's a special teams coach too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think either of those guys have ever called offensive plays, and I don't think they've ever wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, I like outside the box thinking on it, Mark. I do. But it's just these. I will be hardliner with some of this stuff with it, where it's like we can't run shotgun stuff with Sam. It's just not. That's not going to be an offense coordinator like that. Bringing Grubb back in from last year wouldn't have been an offense that works for him. It isn't his. Even Gino had at least a background of coming from spread concepts at West Virginia with Grubb when you paired him up.
Yeah.
There would just be none of that there with Sam. So I get the names, but with Leftwich, it was really the benefit of Tom Brady there with Tampa Bay when he was doing what he was doing. He does not have a great reputation in the league as being a great play caller.
Yeah, and Grubb might get fired from Alabama now. He can't even make it in college anymore.
Shocker, huh?
Yeah. DJJF, thank you for the $5. Is it dark side or dark side? I feel like we need a definitive answer to this important question. Happy Beastquake Day. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the proper grammar is here.
I guess dark side's technically a noun because it's speaking to a specific thing rather than it's on the dark side outside. It's like we are the dark side. So it's speaking to specificity in a noun. So I think the second one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm going to go with that. Happy Beastquake Day, DJ. And thank you to Mark for the don't know above as well, Ski. You guys are awesome.
Yep. Thank you. Let's see here. Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $1.99. Which player are you trading for Crosby with draft picks? I think the most obvious one would be Nwosu because you would have less of a needed edge if you're bringing in Crosby, and Nwosu's kind of a veteran edge who does bring some value to the table, and you could offload his contract.
Yeah, I think Nwosu could be a guy there. Would Christian Haynes carry any value in a kind of trade return on that? helping out an
Um,
offensive line that needs help. You know, I know you're going to bring back Drake Thomas, but you have a Tyrese Knight here. So, and Drake's only on one more year of his deal. Will the intention be to sign Drake to a long-term deal on a restricted tag? You know, maybe not. So that would be a guy to maybe, you know, take a look at there.
well, to me, the interesting one would be, what if the Raiders like Milrow? Would you throw Milrow into a Max Crosby trade?
If it's going to lower down the draft capital, where I can go 2 first-round picks in Milrow,
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
like that a
thinking.
lot better. But is Tom Brady going to be sold on Jalen Milrow?
I
The
don't
guy that
know. I
turned
have
down
no
Sam
idea.
Darnold. The guy that turned down Sam Darnold.
Well, I don't know. I don't like Milrow, but I know some people do. Maybe he's one of them. I have no idea. And also, how much of a voice does Tom Brady have compared to a guy like Spytek?
I think it's a pretty loud voice in that locker room. He was enough to put Carroll reportedly wanted Darnold, and Brady reportedly said no, I don't, and that was enough to make it so that they didn't do the Darnold run after him. So
Man,
like
that's a
that,
mess. That Raiders thing, they're never going to be
it
good.
is a mess. No, it's awful as ever right now. Brady's not helped in the least, but I would think with Brady watching Milrow play the quarterback position off tape in Alabama, which is what he'd have to work off of, I don't think that he would look at that and necessarily say, but maybe you never know. I like you say, I don't know his opinion on it, so maybe he does like Milrow a lot. If you're going to be able to take the 2 first-round picks and then remove a second, move the player, and that can be Milrow that you kick into the 2 first-round picks all day, every day. If that's a potential move you can make here. So, I mean, that's essentially you getting the return back for Milrow we'd hoped you could get, where if he doesn't become the starting quarterback, you get that sort of second-round return on him, like the capital increases, so to speak, because of the investment time you put into him. And
Right.
so now you're getting that investment time back a year later. That'd be tremendous.
Yeah. I think that's kind of my dream. We can get rid of the Milrow thing and just ride with Darnold for the foreseeable future. And we don't have that lingering annoyance of a wasted third round pick anymore.
That's right. That's right.
North Swing, thank you for the $7 Canadian. Scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you we can beat the Rams again if we see them in the playoffs? I mean, we definitely can. If you're talking about like it's a 10 out of 10. I know we can. But, you know, at the end of the day, when you're talking about NFL playoffs, you have to embrace the fact that there is some variance. You can lose to a team that you expect to win. You can lose to a team that you should beat. And that's just the nature of sports at this level. Like there's nothing you can do to guarantee success. So I don't really know how to exactly to approach this question.
Yeah, I think 10 is where I'm at as well with Brendan on this, in that we can play with this team. You had 4 interceptions in the first matchup, and it still came down to a field goal attempt. In this last matchup, you lost the turnover war, and you still won the game. You put out to where you can definitely beat this team. Now, look, it's super close though too. So it's like I'm confident we can beat them, but at the same point in time, it's probably a game if it fits to the first 2 matchups. If it fits to even the matchups last year that we went to, where the last game of the year, the earlier game that went into overtime, we seem to be very close with this team, and it tends to come down to the wire when it's all said and done. And when it comes down to the wire, it's it can be a bit of a coin flip on that as to, you know, who takes it. But that's where things like having home field advantage can be that little extra factor that helps you get a little bit further ahead of that team that you're so even with down the line.
Right. I think there's a lot of residual PTSD from Pete Carroll and Clint Hurtt on beating this Rams team. Like, you look at this Seahawks Rams matchup since McDonald has gotten here, it's 4 games. It is not at all one-sided. It's not anything that we as Seahawks fans should be like thinking this team owns us. It's not the case anymore. Both years, Seattle and LA have been on roughly equal levels in terms of the seasons they've had, and the results have been pretty darn even. So it's just one of those things where I think we just need to realize that Pete Carroll's not here anymore. Clint Hurtt's not here anymore. These miserable defensive players that we've had in some of those games are not here anymore, and they don't really have much bearing on this matchup.
No, they don't. It's a new era, and it's been a new era with Mike in here against the Rams team. And it doesn't mean we own them. It just means that it's not the same thing if they just easily can take us apart and piece by piece on that. So, if I can address too, I see in the chat a little bit talk on the Jay Harbaugh thing where a couple people are bringing up Arn. And definitely, Brian, I wasn't saying you're high for bringing it up. I can understand Harbaugh's had success and you internally promote a guy that's had success. But if you're talking about taking a guy from a special teams coach to an offensive coordinator, there's literally no track record of that I can think of in recent NFL history at all. And so when I say on this, when I push back against that, saying I just don't see that where we're going from on that, it surprises me a little bit that we have so many people that are pushing the Harbaugh to becoming the offensive coordinator thing, because he's never done it. Number one, the guy has only been a special teams coach in the pros for 2 years. Number two, we have no track record of it happening in recent immediate history. Number three, and maybe the most important part of this that I push back onto it, is that, do you guys really want to go through the ropes with a new offensive coordinator that's never called plays in his life? Like, it's not that you guys are, it's just that I'm confounded on why this is being suggested, because this is a team that's going to have Super Bowl aspirations next year. And you want to go through it with a coach who's never called plays, who's going to, the ups and downs that you have to go with that, the ins and the outs, the whatever good he's giving is going to get the bad on the other side. It's like starting a rookie out there 24/7 at a really key important position. Like, might give you some great moments, but you're going to have the rookie moments in there too. And if this was a team that was in its process of development, that'd be one thing. Even then, I'd be hesitant to do it, quite frankly. But the fact that you've got this team where they're at and humming, all the less more reason to do it. So I get that it's a lot of people mentioned on this, but you folks that are mentioning, I love that you guys are hot to trot on Harbaugh with this, but it just doesn't make a ton of sense on it as far as where we're kind of coming from with this one.
Yeah, generally special teams coaches that are really good go straight from special teams coordinator to head coach. Like, that's what happened with John Harbaugh. I think that's what happened with, no, wait. Was it Joe Judge who did that as well? I think Joe Judge was a special teams coach, and then he went straight to head coach.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So
I think
that's typically the path. You don't go from special teams coordinator to offensive coordinator to head coach.
Yeah. I just don't think it's a good way of going with it on it. So, but maybe people are super hot. There's a lot of people hot on this. I'm kind of surprised that people are so wanting to make this be the risk here. And again, all that comes with that. Again, look at the track record recently of when we've had offensive coordinators like Waldron, and they have never called plays before, and you're having them call plays, and what comes with that. But I can't be more against it. And the background of having done some offensive stuff at the college level versus being a pro coordinator, doing things at a pro level on the offensive side of the ball, are night and day difference. The college game is a completely different game offensively than the game at the pro level. It is not even the same sport at times in the way that they play it.
Taker, thank you for the $5. If Kubiak leaves, the double Mike McD dream is now possible. 2 all beef patties, special sauce. Yeah, I do. I am a big fan of McDaniel. I really like what he does with the run game. I think it's really, really advanced stuff that we would benefit tremendously from. If he was the OC in Seattle, I think we would not miss much of a beat.
No, I think it'd be great. He runs outside zone. He comes from the Shanahan's situation, number one. You just spoke about to how he's a guy that's a forerunner here and a guy that kind of has a very smart mind. I think that he's had a high degree of difficulty having to work with Tua Tagovailoa and getting to where he got him to play, which required a lot on McDaniel's part as far as manufacturing that offense for him. I think he'd feel like he's got the wind at his back if you give him a guy like Darnold to be able to work with no limitations for the position. His pre to post snap motion stuff is second to none in this league. You said his running game is great. I think it is as well. So, you know.
Yeah, and remember, he's had a miserable offensive line in Miami that whole time he was there. It would be way better here. And it's not even great here yet, but it would be much better than anything he had in Miami.
Agreed. You'd have the continuity he walks into the door with. And I think it'd be the cool thing with McDaniels, I think this would be by far the most attractive job. My only worry and concerns coming back to it on that one is, do you end up outlasting too far when he gets a little bit, remember the old Arthur Smith thing where we wanted Arthur Smith and we ended up on Grubb and we couldn't go with Arthur Smith because he was getting hired by the Steelers because he wanted to make sure he had a job and he wasn't as sure with us because we were waiting on our head coaching job. And
right.
So this has come up and bit us in the butt before on this, and I hope it doesn't here, but that would be the guy that to me I don't think he's a head coach, but I think he's a grade A offensive coordinator. And I think that he would look at this personnel, JSN on the outside, and the 2 tight ends you have, and Shaheed if you're bringing him back in, and Zach Charbonnet, and say nothing, maybe bring back Walker. I think he'd be a kid in a candy store.
Right. I think if we bring in McDaniel, he would definitely want to bring in Shaheed again. I think that's his kind of guy, the speed on the outside. That's his thing.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
Kevin Kirby, thank you for the $4.99. People want McDaniel as OC if Clint leaves. No, thank you. He was bad with Miami. Do you think Hawks are lying about Horton injury severity? Oh, first of all, McDaniel was definitely not bad with Miami. He got them to their first playoff appearance in quite some time. and they had the number 2 offense in the league a couple years ago with Tua at quarterback. That has been a very good job by McDaniel. It's just kind of not peaked the way they were hoping, and I think his personality is more of a problem than his actual coaching ability at times, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Brendan just said. And I think the key point he just said about that, just take that number 2 offense that he had. How many offensive coordinators are taking Tua Tagovailoa, regardless of whatever else he has around him, and turning that offense into a number 2 offense in the league? If you watch Tua Tagovailoa, you can see that there are just some grade A deficiencies within his game that you have to work through. And remembering with McDaniel, he didn't sign up and go for McDaniel inherited him like Gannon inherited Kyler Murray. McDaniel had to walk in there and inherit Tua. Hey, we drafted this guy super high. Make him work. Well, he's not the best quarterback for my system. There's some limitation. Yeah, we drafted him high. Make him work. And specifically that GM there that made that pick of him that remained there, of course, and been there for so many years was a part of that driving force there. And so the fact that he got success from that offense at all in the first place is kind of pretty incredible. The fact that he had them performing at the height that they were performing at, working around that limitation should really open up eyes of like, wow. And this says nothing of the fact that he did great work with the Niners too before he left there as well. So he's a guy with that track record to me that is pretty undeniable about what he's done, and that he would be absolute, at the very least, lateral move from what you're at with Clint, if not maybe a possibility of being an improvement, an upgrade at the position at that point. So Horton, I don't think they're lying about it. I just think that it's one where it's hard to tell on stuff that's cracked. When bone gets cracked, stuff heals at different speeds for different guys, and it's a broken bone. So it's one where it's not a ligament pull or a sore this or sore that. It's something that you got to wait till the bone's fully healed. And it's at that weird spot on your ankle, which on the front of I believe the front of your ankle where he's got the crack. It's a bad spot. And so, they're probably being very careful with it, but I don't think that there's anything more deeper at play with it as well.
Yeah, and I don't know why they would lie about the injury severity for Horton. Like, I don't know how that benefits them. And I mean, the only thing I can think of is like they don't want to have to use him in the playoffs because he's a rookie. So therefore, they're going to just say it's worse than it is. Like, but why? Who's going to be on the active roster because Horton's out? It's probably going to be somebody like Derek Young or Ricky White III. Those guys aren't going to get to play either. So I don't know what the point would be.
Yeah, I think it's one of those injuries that's been a little bit weird for them coming along. I think that they're just being careful with him, and they can afford to be Tua Shaheed, because why rush him out, like you say, to be essentially the third guy in the roster spot sitting on the bench if rest will help, his future for this thing to fully heal and not come back again to be a problem at all. I mean, it's hard to say on this stuff blind exactly with not knowing the details of the injury and what exactly is going on, kind of having to read Kevin between the lines with McDonald's press conferences on that. And he can sometimes be very vague when it comes to the injury stuff. He's not always letting you know he's just kind of working through stuff. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. And I think most coaches are like that. And there's a reason why most coaches are like that. I think, is there anything else that we need to go over while we're just waiting for these wild card round games to play out?
I think we covered it good. I hope Hawk fans are feeling good. I do want to say that as we're going to lead up into next week and talk about this, that I've been saying this in every single stream. I hope you do as well when you get a chance to the audience. And that's just, if you're in that stadium next week, we got 2 wins to go get us to a Super Bowl. You find yourself lucky you have a ticket. You know somebody who is going to have a ticket. Make sure that they know what time it is when they walk in that stadium. Remind them. I think some of the younger generation on this needs a little reminder. It's been 10 years since we've been this kind of team. So here's a reminder. You walk in there, you lose your voice. You walk in there, you go crazy. You walk in there, it's not about the food. It ain't about your phone. You be connected to the process of what's going on in the field, because you could help this team get to a Super Bowl. You've done it 3 times before. The last 3 times they've gone. Do it again this time. Capture that spirit that is so special in that stadium and take advantage of this great opportunity that this team has given you. And everybody's been telling us for years about why the environment's not been up to snuff for what had been 10 years prior, Brendan. They've sent it in our chat. They've sent it in the B&B show. Well, you got to give us a reason to win. Well, they can't get off the football field. Well, they get 1 step forward, they fall 1 step back. And all of the reasons that were provided have been thrown out the door. No more reasons. Number 1 seed, 2 wins. You go to the Super Bowl. Get in there and light that building up. Show them again why we were once able to create an earthquake the back of our voices, because there's no bigger home field advantage in all of sports if you can take advantage of that way.
Absolutely. I like it. I hope it bears out, but we will be doing one more show before our next game, because obviously we don't have a game this week. So next time we convene, we will be talking about whoever it is we're playing, going to be talking about that matchup. And thanks for a great show today. I know that we didn't have a game to preview, but there was still a lot to talk about. And a lot of people showed up. We had like 450 people here for a lot of the show.
Go.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it was great. So thank you, everybody. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me. Hope to do it again next week.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure with it. And appreciate all of the folks out there with all the donations and great discussion in the chat as ever with regards to this team, man.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're here, guys. 14 wins. We are the 1 seed. We're waiting to see what other teams do. We're going to watch other teams beat up other teams. We're going to be well rested and healthy and ready to go for that first playoff game. Playing somebody that just got beat up, it is something that we earned over the course of this season. Been a very great, special season. Maybe the best team in franchise history in terms of the regular season. Maybe. That's a 50-year history. Yeah, there's a 50-year history here. And this might be the best team we've ever had in the regular season. So let's make it a great postseason. Let's finish the job. And let's not forget, go Hawks.